back in Georgia. We're back in the studio. And we're back to in-person Traveler'S Proc. Welcome back, everybody, to Traveler'S Proc.
Dude, back to playing Smite too. It's been so long. Did you watch any of the All-Star event, the Chaos Order thing?
I was watching it like in and out. I saw like some games. I didn't watch like the full games. I saw everybody was memeing about Baskin's outpush or whatever.
Dude, he was owning.
I know he was. At the one game I watched, he did. I think he was like top damage. He had like 40k damage or something.
It was the second game he played it. It was like game 4 in our set or something. We like were 5v1 on fire, and he nearly killed like 2 people. Like just with his. Oh, that character's OP.
That's awesome.
I swear.
Speaking of the All-Star event, the Roll Star event's coming up next week, and I think it's cool like that whoever won the All-Star event got to pick the teams, and I think the teams are really, really interesting.
Yeah, they are. I feel like I don't know, we'll get to it, but I love being a support player for the support teams. It's just so funny. Everybody, you said it earlier, like everyone just underestimates you. It's just a free underdog buff.
Yep. I mean, like I feel like all the junglers, like they have a lot of good off-role players. I feel like they're gonna think they're gonna do really good, and they're just gonna lose.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna go through this episode. We're going to touch on the role stars a little bit, and then we're gonna be talking a little about the recent roster changes as well as just some other roster changes and just how we look at it through our career since we're a couple boomers who have been around forever. But yeah, I think ADC is the first roll up that was drafted.
Yeah, and then for the audio listeners as well, we're gonna have graphics. If you're watching it on Mike's YouTube or right now live, we're gonna have graphics coming up on the stream. So if you guys are interested in that, you might want to watch this week's episode in like a little bit of video format, at least the beginning of the episode. I think after we go through the role stars and the roster changes that happened recently, we'll probably go back to like our other format where we're just talking. So if you're interested in the graphics, definitely check them out because they're really good.
Yeah. So first up were the ADCs. It was Coast and Vote picking. I think Coast was first pick, and he took Hardcore and then got Stu, Netroid, and Wowie. And then Vote grabbed Cyclone Spin with the second overall pick, and then Streak Up, Barracuda, and Preds. So there are 3 SCC players because of the Levi's roster change, which we'll get to later. But their new ADC will not be playing in this event. So yeah, what do you think about the 2 ADC teams?
I think both teams are really good for the Hunters as well. Yark and Cyclone going first and second doesn't surprise me. I feel like those are like the given ones for sure. And then like Stu going second, I know Stu has a really good mid lane, so I'm guessing that Stu's gonna be mid. And then Streak also has a really good mid lane. It's funny, I feel like they both picked their Swiss Army knife players first that can go anywhere, and then they have Stu and Streak playing mid like second, and then like for the bottom 2, I feel like my guess is that Bear is gonna play Hunter and Maui's gonna play Hunter. That's what I think.
I'd put Wowie Hunter for sure. I think the smart thing about the Streak Up pick is he nearly qualified to the SPL this year as a mid laner. Like he played mid lane at that tournament. I think they finished like 4th or something. So
was he on the Kana team?
I don't remember the teams, honestly. I just remember he owned. He just had a few games where he went just crazy. He might have been on... I think he might have been the mid laner for Preds' team, which was Preds, Kana, Sarpei, and...
there was Scorpions or whatever, I think.
Yeah, I could be completely wrong, but I don't remember perfectly. But yeah, I think both of the ADC teams are pretty good. I do think... The funny thing about these tournaments is just guessing like where people play, because I feel like when you mention mid, I feel like mid is always the role that everyone says they want to play because it sounds fun. Like everyone just likes to off-roll in ranked and play like random Merlin games and stuff. But I don't know. I kind of think I like Vote's team a little more. I would just put Barra support because that guy loves Geb and Ganesha.
I could see Barra playing support, but at the same time, I can't see him playing anything else other than Hunter.
Oh really? Yeah.
That's how I feel.
He's been an ADC for so long. Yeah.
But I could see him playing support. Definitely dual lane.
Yeah. I feel like Spin is hard because everyone's gonna be like, oh yeah, like just put Spin in Hardcore solo. I think for Hardcore it's kind of a troll to put him solo. You should just let that guy fill. Just put him anywhere.
one thing that I'll give a warning to Coast's team right now. If anybody on Coast's team is listening, do not let Coast play mid, because he will pick Tiamat and he will ruin your solo laner's game. But okay, wait, there's one. If they do put Coast mid, they can put him mid if Yark is solo lane, because Yark knows how to play solo lane, so he could probably figure it out. Yeah. But if you have someone off rolling solo lane and Coast plays Tiamat, he's gonna insta lose his solo laner the game for picking Tiamat.
I feel like his bottom two picks, I can't imagine, like what you said about Barra, I can't imagine Royd and Wowie playing anything but ADC.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I wonder where Royd and Wowie are going to go. I feel like that's the most interesting pairing for a team out of the Hunter teams. Like, I don't know if they're going to go...
Maybe Wowie could play support. I don't know. I feel like Hardcore is going to end up playing support. That's my guess.
You think he's going to play support?
I think he's going to want to play support, yeah.
I think Troyd and Wowie are going to probably play... I mean, I guess Coast can... Who's going to jungle for that
I think
team?
Stu's going to jungle.
You think Stu's going to jungle?
I think it'll be Stu jungle, and Hardcore and Coast are either mid and solo. That's my guess.
Yeah, I could see.
Well, in the scenario you're saying, in the scenario you're saying, otherwise, like maybe Hardcore support and like Wowie mid, maybe.
I think Stu should be mid, probably. That's what I think.
I could see that.
I could see
Stu play like. I feel like
Stu playing Vulcan or like Merlin or something like that, he'd crush. I feel like
Coast should just play solo because he loves Tyr. Like Tyr and Wukong, he loves them so much. He could just be. Oh, you know what we forgot about the fun thing about this tournament, the Roll Stars tournament, is you can't play the same god twice in one set. And is that win or lose? I think it's win or lose. You can't play it.
Yeah, it's only for the set, and I think it resets after the set's over, and I think that's really cool. And also, this tournament has a prize pool, so all these teams are. Well, at least they
try hard.
They should try, but like, who knows if people will? I'm definitely trying because it's a lot of fun. So
it'll be so fun because not only do you have to have an off-roll god pool, but you have to have like more than like one or two picks off-roll. So it'll be really fun.
Yeah, I think the god getting banned after every game rule is like it's perfect for a tournament like this because people always talk about like, for instance, like my Pele. Everybody hates my Pele's. It's like that. I only play it once in a series, so
yeah. Should we say what team we think is stronger or should we keep that under the chest?
I'm down. I think it's really close here. This is probably the closest out of both teams, in my opinion.
I think it's close, but I think
they're all actually thinking about like a lot of these rosters. A lot of them are close. I probably would go Vote's team.
Yeah, I like Vote's team just because I think the streak up pick was smart.
Yeah,
I think you put streak mid and they're chilling.
The thing is though, like. Coast and Yark are both really good off-rollers, so like anything could happen. I just think, like you said, Netroid and Wowie, I feel like both probably want to play Hunter, so I feel like that's where it brings their team down because who knows where those guys are going to end up.
Yeah.
So, but I guess it's the same thing for Baron and Davey because I feel like we know Streak and Cyclone and Voke are for sure off-rollers. But Davey and Barra, I don't know.
Okay, this is purely speculation. Every story I've ever heard about any like European ranked player is they all have alt accounts and they all constantly snipe like the good queues. And in Europe, there's always like, it's always one queue. Like it's either Adapting's queue or Deathwalker's queue or something. And I feel like all of them, like that's how Liam and Dardas or Vote and Dardas, they both like played a lot of off roll just in those queues, sniping them. So my guess is Davies done the same. That's my guess.
Yeah, that's probably a good guess. So yeah, I'm sure that'll be better for sure. But yeah, like between Royd and Wowie, that's the only thing that I am not sure where they're gonna go.
Yeah. So I think Jungle was the next role that was drafted in the Roll Stars event. I think Oath had first pick, and Oath took Adapting, Scream, Laspra, and Kirmi. And Panatom's team has Panatom, of course, Twig, Sam for Soccer, and Worst Turtle from the SEC. And then defending Masters champion, Sinosure. What do you think about their team?
Okay, for Oath's team, you're going to see Oath, Kenneth, and Lasbra. They're going to be tri-flanking, and Scream and Kirmi are going to be cowabungaing into the enemy team. And they're going to be like, guys, where you guys at? And they're going to be like, I'm flanking. Okay. And there's going to be 3 flankers at the same time.
Okay, surely on this team, I think it'll be Lasbra support.
Okay.
I think it'll be Las or Kirmi support for sure. Oath said he wants to play mid. And the problem with Oath wanting to play mid is I think
Scream on your
Scream
team.
can only play mid overall. So I'm going to go ahead and say Scream's an anchor on this team. He's dragging them down to the bottom of the ocean. Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like you got to put Adapting jungle on this team. I feel like
he plays a lot of off role though too. Like you could put Adapting in mid or Hunter as well. I feel like, but
maybe Adapting Hunter is the play. Yeah, that could be good.
He streams a ton of Smite, and then whenever he's in his like grinding phase, like you see him playing.
Yeah,
usually mid and Hunter as well. He doesn't really play solo or support that much, but mid and Hunter for sure.
Do you think any team will change up their roles game to game? Because we don't have to be locked, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That could make sense.
100%.
That would help you on the whole like God thing too. Yeah.
Yeah, like if. Like
we're giving strats. This only the supports would think about this. Unlucky.
But yeah, no, I'm sure people would think about that as well. I think. Okay, let's give we haven't talked about the other team yet, but without talking about it, which team do you think is better?
I like Pandy's team.
I like Pandy's team too. That's what I was gonna say.
I like Pandy's team way more. Pandy's team, for those who are listening only, is again Pandy, Twig, Sam for Soccer, Sino, and Worst Turtle. For those of you who don't know Turtle, maybe if you're mostly like an NA Smite viewer, he's really good. He also played really well at the qualifier tournament. He's been around forever. He's been like one of the best ranked junglers like almost every year. So I feel like you put Turtle jungle on this team actually. Okay, the thing I love about this team, Twig and Sam, and maybe Sino too, they're just OP for off-roll. Because like Twig, for example, he plays a ton of duel. He will just play anything. Like, he doesn't care. And Twig's always playing a win. Like, kind of how you were saying the Cowabunga boys on the other team. Twig is down to be the Cowabunga boy, and so is Sino. So, I don't know. I think the roles are interesting. I think Sam's going to want to play mid. That's the thing about Sam, is he wants to play mid. I think you put Turtle jungle. Sino solo is where I would put him, personally.
I could see that, yeah.
But the thing is, Twig doesn't want to be anywhere near dueling. He hates dueling. He can't stand it. So the support on that team is the question mark for me.
Sino could probably play support too.
You think Sino would play support?
I could see him playing it. I could see it. Like the thing about this team compared to the other jungle team, which when I was talking to Mike, I was also talking to some of the guys out here before they left because the captains were here who were drafting after the All-Star event. I was saying the junglers are going to get crushed because they're just going to go in and be super cocky, and I think they're going to kind of underestimate everybody else. I feel like they have a lot of good off-role players, but like Mike was saying, there's big problems already in Oath's team. Oath wants to play mid. That's not going to fly with Scream on the team.
It's a bad idea to put Oath mid.
Like Scream and Oath both wanting mid. That's not going to be good.
Hear Me and Last will go anywhere.
Yeah,
they for sure don't care where they play. They'll do whatever. I think Last will actively want to play support. He likes support a lot.
That's a good thing for their team for sure.
Yeah, it is.
That is like a huge benefit.
Last is also a big talker, so I think that'll be good for them. The problem with their team is what you said, but also like, you know how when you're in ranked, everybody blames the jungler for like not like whenever their lane's going bad, they blame the jungle. I feel like junglers like, as much as other people maybe don't play jungle and don't know like how hard it is to play jungle, I think it's way worse to have 4 people who don't know how to play any other role. And I feel like none of them know how to lane, really. Like laning is a really specific skill set as well.
Yeah.
Like it's so different.
I think that's fair. I think like the thing I was saying earlier where they're going to be like the tri-flankers, I feel like, on that team.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's the opposite for the other team. You have Panny, Twig, Sam.
Yeah.
Sino. I feel like they're gonna get in there. Like they're ready to cowabunga. That's all I know.
No, Twig, Sam, and Sino are on int watch at any moment for sure.
Panny, I feel like Panny's gonna get right in there with them too.
Panny gets in there, but he'll get in there like on a carry. You know, like he'll probably get a couple kills. Like I could see Sam just be like, well, I gotta do this, and they'll just like get in there and die.
I could see Worst Turtle like being like, what? Where am I right now? Like during the game, he's gonna be the one who's gonna be playing back and like farming. Maybe he's like the mid laner that they need, like in disguise. If he's not a cowabunga boy, I actually don't know how he plays much.
There's maybe a chance. Like Twig and Sam do have mid jungle synergy. We did play on a team. Like all of us played on a team together for a full year.
Oh, that is true.
So that could be good. Like you could put if one of them is okay playing solo, because I think Twig would be a good solo lane choice. I think you could just put Sam and Twig mid jungle and have the other 3 like go wherever.
I think this team too, out of any other team, or at least for any other teams that we talked about, I guess the Jark and Coast team maybe as well. Like there's what you were saying earlier, can't speak, where they might swap roles in between the games. Like I could see like the Panny team doing that a lot.
Yeah, that could be good for sure.
Between gods, because I know Sino likes certain picks. I know Sam likes to play like picks like Outwash mid randomly, and then like you have Twig who can play like Anubis or like Poseidon.
Yeah, and
Oleron.
Sam's been streaming a lot for anyone who's been watching him lately, and he's just playing any role. So I feel like he should be. This is like the perfect event for Sam if he try hard. It's like he's just been practiced for it.
Yeah, I'm sure he's happy about the event and how it's going to be, because I think he's definitely a really good player to have for an event like this.
So do we both like the same team again? We both like Panny's team.
We both like Panny's team, yeah.
So I think support was the next role.
Oh God.
Okay, for those who don't know, everyone's hating on the supports. Support finished second last year. We only lost to Solo Lane, and in that tournament we lost because I trolled. Because this was like before I started the invade meta crap last year, and I was like, I'll just use this tournament to try it out. So I laned with Ronnie. Ronnie played ADC, and I had Ronnie and me invade into Invader's Curse at level 1, and we got double killed instantly and lost the game, which is unlucky. It happens. So we limit tested there, but you know, Jake was drafting the support team, and he ran it back for us, same exact team we had last year. Jake, Genetics, Rangyu, myself, and Neil. And then our counter support team was drafted by Heroin, which is Hurry, Aurora, Preds, Gamma, and Quig. So I guess, how do you feel about your team? How do you feel about being the first overall support?
I mean, I was surprised that Hurry actually picked me first.
Really?
Yeah, I thought that he would go with. Like,
I would have picked you or Gamma first instantly. I thought I would have picked Gamma way earlier.
I mean, I'm happy to have Gamma on my team. Gamma and Quig. Quig last pick.
Yeah, I know.
Like, was he last pick?
No, I think Neil was last. Yeah.
But Quig second to last pick. I feel like that's the biggest steal of like all the support picks for sure. Because Quig can play basically anything. I've played tournaments with him. Like I played the APAM tournament against him. I remember I played with him. He was playing mid lane as well. I played with him, Sino, Sot, Cyclone. And yeah, we ended up, that was right after Season 5 Worlds. We played in APAM's tournament that he hosted, which was awesome. And we played against the Sanguine roster that had Rangyu, Netria, Jark, like the original Sanguine roster. And I feel like they did really good in that tournament. But Quig played really well. So like Quig can play a lot of stuff. And like Quig, I feel like a lot of people don't know this about Quig, is that he's been around for a long time, even though he hasn't played in the SPL that much. And Quig has like a really good mind for the game and like coming up with good strategies. So I feel like having him on the team is like a huge bonus for us. Yeah,
Quig and Gamma for sure were both such good picks, I think, just because they both just have a ton of alt accounts and they play ranked all the time, and they'll play any role, and they're just going to be good off rollies. I think Hurry had the scouting report on that for sure. Like Hurry knows the rank smurfers who get in there. So yeah, I don't know. I like your team a lot. I don't know anything about Preds. I don't know if Preds plays any other role. I have a feeling Preds might be support on your guys' team. I feel like Hurry's going to end up playing mid.
I might play support a little bit. I was saying
right now could do the thing that we were talking about where you just rotate everyone around.
I'm going to play, definitely, I'm playing support, solo, and Ares jungle. That's my plan right now. I leaked my pick. If you see the Ares, it could be jungle.
They can target ban it if they want. That means your teammates are getting good picks.
Yeah, but
you have too many. Like you gotta ban so many characters from your team. Like if Hurry's playing mid, that's an instant Janus ban. Gamma any role, instant Atlas ban. Got to get rid of that. And then you got to ban Ares jungle just in case they don't know where you're going.
Yeah. Your team's good too, though. Jake, Genetics, Rangyu, you, and Neil. Like, and also you have like the luxury of the run back effect as well.
We do, yeah.
Which is always nice because even though it's been a year, I feel like you guys have a little bit of like some team synergy, as people like to call it.
You know what was awesome that I forgot to mention at the start? Jake took Genetics with his first pick instantly.
Yes, we were laughing about that.
It's so funny.
Me and Mike were watching it live out here together.
I said it as a joke too. I'm like, imagine Jake's a snap blocks Genetics, and then he actually did it. Is so funny to me.
But like, to be fair, Genetics is a good player, and like, if he wants to win the tournament,
no, I love it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And you were also telling me, we were talking about it. You said that like Genetics didn't do anything to Jake. It's not like he was the one who did the roster change for that. So
we'll touch on all of that a little bit more later for sure. But yeah, my only hope for the team I'm on is I really don't want to play support, because I've done this type of event. Like, we've both been around so long. I don't think I've ever gotten to not play support in this event. I really just want to play literally anything else, because I know Neil and I think it was one of the APAM tournaments. I think Neil played with us in place of, it might have been in place of Twig or something, like in one of the off seasons, like back then. And Neil and I played mid jungle. And I think we either made it to finals and won, or we lost to the Sanguine team or something one of the years we played. It's all a blur, but yeah, I just don't want to play support. I just always have to play support. I just want to play anything else. My brain, I can't do it. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I like the way Hurry drafted. I know that for sure. I don't know which team will do better, but I like Hurry's draft.
I'm doing the super biased thing. I'm saying
yourself.
Both supports to finals. I'm saying both teams. I swear, if both supports make it to finals, everybody's gonna lose their mind.
I would love it.
Especially Hazer. Hazer always says supports suck.
I love it.
So I would love to see Hazer see that.
Dude.
Shout out to Hazer. I'm sure he'll be watching the tournament this upcoming weekend, so you guys can check out his stream. He's always got a good one going.
Was it mids were next up, or is it solo? It's mids. Yeah, mids are next up. Okay. I think the one role that I actually think is pretty good that people maybe didn't expect is mid, for sure. The teams for mid are Darda's team. He drafted Big Man, Shinto. Paul, like 6th or 7th pick or whatever he is crazy, by the way. That is
crazy.
And then Crimson. And then Ven's team is Pegon, Benny Q, Snoopy, and Hawk.
He's got the brothers, though.
Yeah, he does. He has the brothers.
That's actually sick.
Okay, also the mid lane team, one of the reasons, a lot of these guys, it's not even just off-rolling and ranked. These guys play different roles in the pro league. Like, Snoopy has played ADC a ton, obviously. Darda's and Big Man both were SPL supports for multiple years, like many, many years. So they're just... and
Shinto beat you at Worlds.
Oh yeah, soul lane. Yeah, Shinto was a soul laner. And dude, Daniel literally, like, not an exaggeration, we literally had games last year on the Dragons with Daniel where he played jungle. Like, we went into the draft saying, Daniel, you are the jungle for this game. So Pegon, I think Pegon was the first pick overall, I think, right?
I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, I would have picked Pegon first for sure. I don't know. These teams are hard. I feel like Darda's team has more potential just because of the Paul, like, 8th pick or whatever he was. Like, getting Paul that late, I think, was kind of OP. It's really just where you put all of them.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's the problem. If it was me, I think I would... Apparently, people were saying that Crimson played a good bit of ADC.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard because I feel like... I mean, Darda's plays a ton of Hunters, too. He kind of always has. I feel like I'd keep Shinto mid, and then I'd put one of Darda's and Big Man in support because they were SPL supports. And then I don't know where I'd go from there. Maybe Paul solo lane is the play.
Yeah, I feel like that's... Like, if they figure out the puzzle for the Darda's team, I feel like they're... like insane, but they could just troll and put people in random roles, and then it doesn't work out.
Who's jungle on that team? I think that's the hardest.
That's the hardest
one. Is who's
I think Paul. I honestly think Big Man could probably play jungle too. I think Paul and Big Man.
Yeah.
And then maybe Darda's, maybe Shinto. I guess Shinto as well. Like, I think all 4 of those guys can play it. I think the biggest thing is like Big Man and Darda's, probably one of them should probably be in the dual lane just because they both are insane at dual. I think if not, both of them.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think they could put Darda's ADC and Big Man support or vice versa.
Yeah, because maybe you just do that and you put Crim and mid on that team.
And put who? Paul jungle or Shinto?
You put Shinto jungle and put Paul solo.
That could be good. I'm not gonna lie. The most valuable pick for the mids by far, in my opinion, was Pegon, just because. Pegon should be jungle for sure.
Yeah.
You just snap lock if Pegon had either Darda's or Big Man on his team, I actually might be convinced that they were the best, like, team in the tournament. Just because you just put Pegon jungle and then you have like a former SPL support who's not a support anymore. Like, it actually would be perfect.
You'd have a jungle support in an off-roll tournament.
Dude, they actually kind of played Monopoly. Ven took the jungle mid laner, and then Dardas took both the support mid laners. So they just have support Monopoly on the... Actually, I guess Snoopy played support a little bit.
Yeah, he did play support. So maybe Snoopy will go there. I don't know how much
Snoopy support for sure on that team, or Ven. It's either Snoopy or Ven are support.
Yeah, the thing with Benny Q and Hawk, I don't know where they're gonna go exactly.
Benny's solo, I think. He loves Arthur. I know that.
That's true.
He's got one god, but he does love it.
I've seen him play other stuff too. I think I've seen him play like I mean, he was playing Charon in his
I was gonna say the thing is Benny can play Guardians too. Like he's played like Terra and Atlas mid and all that in the SPL. So
yeah, maybe they'll cook something up over there.
Yeah.
Where do you think Ven's gonna go?
I think Ven might be support the more I look at it. I think you put Ven Snoopy duo.
Ven could also play Hunter on that team too, because he has history playing SPL as a Hunter.
I could see that. I don't know what else Hawk plays. I think some people had said Hawk played support at one point in the FCC.
Yeah.
So maybe you could put Hawk support as well. I don't know Hawk as well, just because I don't get to play against him as much because he's in Europe. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do. Like, I feel like both these teams, it's like an undone puzzle kind of. If they can reassemble the puzzle, both these teams could be insanely good. I was saying the mid laners are probably like the most underrated teams for sure going into the tournament, besides the support.
Yeah, for sure. I think I like Dardas' team more, the Dardas, Big Man, Shinto, Paul, Crim team. I actually just think they'll try harder.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I know for sure Dardas and Paul will try hard, like 100%.
Paul loves these types of tournaments, like even like gem tournaments. Like he loves.
Oh, he's rich. He's got so many.
He loves tournaments so much, and like this is literally right up Paul's alley. There's a money prize pool. He gets to play Smite, just like even playing a different role, and like I feel like he's gonna enjoy it a lot. So I think I'm gonna go with the Dardas team as well, even though the Ven team's also really good right now. Sure. I'd say all the teams are really good. I guess it makes sense because we're all SPL players, but like it's hard to pick. Like I swear all these teams are sick for sure. And like I feel like the biggest thing is that if the team's gonna work or not is like if they can figure out where they're gonna put everybody and if everybody's happy. If people are unhappy, that's where the downfall is going to be.
Because I've already sabotaged my team. If I'm support, I will be unhappy. Like I'm already sabotaging. Yeah, I'm sabotaging.
Well, you're not sabotaging. You're actually helping. You're communicating what you want to do. Because because listen to this. This happens all the time. If you didn't tell your team that you didn't want to do support,
true. That's what I did last year, and I was actually unhappy.
Then they put you in support, and then you're like, okay, time to turbo time, and you start running it down.
Last year, Genetics trolled us because we went into that game, and he's like, yeah, I'll play support, or like he's like, oh yeah, I'll play support, and then he's like, actually, I want to play your mid. So like mid draft, he locks your mid, and then we're like, who's playing support? And then I had to do it, and then I was instantly sad.
So at least you're like putting it out there for your team that I don't want to be support. Don't put me there. I don't want to do that. So I think it's a good thing more so than a
support's
sabotage.
The only role I will feed in. Maybe ADC. I don't like ADC either. Just keep me out of duo lane.
Okay.
And I'll have fun.
But yeah, for sure, like communicating that to your team, like what you want to do, I think is going to be the biggest thing. I think if you sit there as a player in this tournament and you don't say anything, and you're like, I don't care, man. And then you get into game and then you start turbo running it. Then you're like, okay, maybe I did care.
You know what? I want to. Solo lane's the last role to go over. At the end of this, I want to go through not only what role do you think is maybe the best. I think there's some roles that have like natural counters kind of that I want to talk about a little bit. But yeah, I think solo is our last team. Baskin's team is Baskin, Sat, Nika, Julio, and Ducky. And then Finok's team is Haddix, well, Finoka, of course, himself, Haddix, Variety, Kana, and Aquarius. For those of you who don't know him by Aqua, I don't know why I felt the need to clarify that. But there you go. What do you think of the solo lane teams?
Okay, first look at him. Baskin was talking so much trash, actually. He said it was so free. He said it was such a free tournament for the solo laners. There is no way after looking... The solo laners came up on screen. Me and Mike were watching this like out in the room out there. We were talking. And as soon as solo laners come up, I'm like, what is Baskin talking about? Like, I'm like, what?
Okay, I got two... Like, I don't think they're hot takes at all, but a lot of people do. I think solo is the most overrated role in SPL history. Like, by a lot. I'm not sure. Like, everybody always says how stacked the role is, and I honestly don't feel that way at all. I think if you got to combine the teams, like if you just took the best 5 solo laners, I think they'd have a good shot because a lot of them could off roll. But like the whole bottom row and maybe Variety, actually Ducky can off roll, but I think of that bottom row, he's literally the only one who can off roll at all and not play solo. And I feel like I think for Baskin's team having Sa and Nika, I think it'll be Nika, Baskin duo lane. I think Baskin said he wants to play support, right? Mm-hmm. I think Nika will play ADC. Sa wants to play mid for sure. And then I think it'll be Ducky jungle and Julio solo.
I think you nailed. That's the team.
Yeah, that's the team that has the best. Yeah, they have the best one.
You know which team what they're gonna play. I feel like 100%, they're not gonna throw any curveballs. Sot's gonna be mid. Baskin's gonna be in support, and Julio's gonna be in solo lane. The only curveball I could see is like Ducky and Nika maybe swapping.
Ducky does play ADC. I remember he would play a lot on stream with Bobby with Inbound.
Yeah,
and they were duo lane sometimes together. Both of them can play ADC for sure. I think Ducky should play jungle though, just because Ducky has a lot of gods that he plays already that he'd be a good jungler with. Like he played a lot of Thor this year, for example. Like he's played solo through assassin metas and stuff. So yeah, I think the hardest thing to me, honestly, about that team is just who's playing jungle. But the rest is pretty good because they know where the rest of them are gonna go. For FinoK's team, I think Alec will play jungle for sure. He did last year as well. Yeah, he played jungle last year and they won. I think that team they were the team that beat us last year, and I think it was FinoK jungle, and then I think they had, maybe it was like Sot, Variety, Haddix, and I forget who the last one was. Oh, it was Nika, and yeah, it was pretty good, but I don't know. The roles on this team are so hard. Where do you put Variety, you think?
I could see Variety going mid. I know he loves playing mid.
I'd put Variety in the mid trio, because I think Variety will carry comms on that team. Yeah. Tryhard Variety is OP.
I could see him being mid for sure. It is smart that FinoK picked Chadix because Chadix is Chadix, I feel like. And if you put Chadix and Sot on the same team, that could have been dangerous for the solo laners. It's like the two... It
could have been dangerous for the team that they're on as well.
I feel like Chadix keeps it serious, though.
He does.
So I feel like he would hold them together. But I feel like... I could see him going anywhere.
Jungle support on this team, man.
On which one?
On FinoK's team, yeah.
I could see Chadix going jungle, and then I could see Kana playing support as well because I think he plays some Guardians.
Kana support could make sense. Yeah. Actually, I think it will just be Alec jungle for sure.
You think so?
Yeah, I think Fine will play jungle. Okay, the thing I was touching on before we went to the solo lane teams. I like Baskin's team better, for the record. I just think the roles make way more sense, and I think they're just more versatile. Solo laners are owned when it comes to jungle support. I think is such a hard role for, like, solo laners literally don't interact with the rest of the map for the first, 15 minutes of the game sometimes. And I feel like that early game, laning phase and stuff is so important, and you can grief it so easily. Even clearing the jungle incorrectly in duo lane can grief you instantly. So I kind of feel like duo lane and maybe jungle are the weak spot for the solo laners.
The one thing I will say, I would pick the Baskin team for sure over the FinoK team, and I still think I might. I'm still thinking about it. Mm-hmm. But if they put Sot in jungle and Baskin support, they would be my pick over...
Yeah, I kind of think Sot
solo lane team.
I wouldn't put Sot mid.
Sot probably wants to play mid, so he'll probably go mid. But I think Sot, if Sot whips his Thanatos out or his Thor in jungle,
I would put Sot or Baskin jungle for sure. If it was me making the team, if I was the coach.
Don't put Sot in support.
Yeah, no. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe Wooney's support is correct, or Ducky. Maybe I could see Ducky being a good support.
Yeah, I could see that too.
But yeah, I think I do like Baskin's team a little bit more. Honestly, I don't know if maybe I'm with you. It's support finals angle, double support teams finals. Yeah, unbiased, of course.
I'm biased. I'll admit it. I think support's going to be in the final. I just think, too, the thing about support is that I feel like no one's going to be like, I want to do this. Maybe genetics. Maybe genetics. So, but I feel like everybody else is going to be like, sure, I'm down. Everybody's going to be down for anything.
I think
as support. That's the biggest strength that we have.
I think in this tournament as well, the underrated thing about support is that we actually have a lot of the supports, like Jake, for example. Jake plays ADC all the time. Like, I think Jake is probably, he might be the best off-role ADC who hasn't, like, Snoopy played, like, pro ADC, you know? Like, other than people like that, Jake honestly might be the best off-role ADC, like, in the entire SPL. And I feel like when you have people like that, it's kind of, like, your role just gets turbo buffed in general because it's just so much.
Yeah, the Jake Trinabog is dangerous.
Yeah, I think soul lanes get countered by... I think solo laners, maybe jungle is the weakest part. Maybe not the Fine OK team. I think Alex is a pretty good jungle, but I think for Bastion's team, who's jungle, is maybe the...
If Sako's jungle, I think they'll be good. That's what I think.
But you know he's not going to. You know he's not going to do it.
That's like another thing. Like, if they... Like, I feel like all of these teams are just... It's like a puzzle for every team. If they solve it right, like, they're going to be insanely good. But if they put it together wrong, then it's going to look stupid, like, playing. Yeah. So...
Either way, hopefully a really fun event. I'm definitely excited to play in it for sure. Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I've been going crazy like with how long the break is in. I'm just so happy to like this weekend. Not as much. Like I wasn't really like this most recent like Chaos vs Order event wasn't as fun for me to like because people just it was just so I hate the balance of like are we tryharding or are we trolling?
Yeah,
and it just makes the games unenjoyable. But an event like this, I feel like it's really cool because everybody gets to have fun just because a lot of people are going to be off-roll anyways. So you get to have fun while also tryharding, and there's like incentives for you to win. So I think it'll be a lot of fun.
And like with the off-rolling too, like it doesn't feel as bad. Like it's not going to feel like anyone's leaking anything.
For sure, yeah.
That's the thing too, because like if you play your own role in the role star tournament, like everybody knows how to play your role basically, so it's like exactly, like they're not going to be asking like what am I going to do here or whatever.
Be like, dude, why'd you pull that buff that way? You know, like, there's nothing special about like everyone knows.
Yeah, so everybody knows their own role, so it's just like everybody's gonna be off-rolling, so everybody's gonna be helping each other out and just trying to win, which is gonna be really fun to watch. I feel like, and it's gonna be fun to play in as well. I'm really excited. I'm super excited now. Like I didn't even know. Yeah. I didn't know all the details until today, until I got here when I was watching the draft thing. But I think it's gonna be awesome.
Okay, last thing on the Roll Stars. What player gets owned the hardest by not being able to repeat their god?
Me. No, I'm just kidding.
Or maybe what team? Or what role? It could be a role team, whatever. I think that's the interesting part of the tournament, I think.
It's hard to say. It depends. Like, honestly, like, for me, like, I have some gods that I really like that I think I'm really good off-rolling. I feel like I could be a culprit for a player like that. Like, thinking about it's hard to think. Maybe like
I will say that is the biggest advantage the soul laners have is I think in soul lane you have the widest like variety of characters you can play for sure. So I think that rule of not being able to repeat gods, I think it affects them the least. I think that is the biggest thing they have going for them.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to think of someone else though. Like I guess I don't know everybody's off-roll god pool though. That's the thing too. Like there's a lot of mystery out there.
Just for fun, I was gonna say Coast because I just think if he plays solo, he's just gonna be like a tier 1 trick. He loves tier.
Nah, he's got
some stuff.
He's got some stuff in the as the EU guys like to say in the locker.
Yeah, it's in the locker.
He's got a lot of stuff in the locker for solo lane for sure.
Yeah, should be fun. You want to move on to the recent roster changes then?
Yeah, I'm down. Let's do it.
Yeah, so for everybody who is just listening, not watching either on Twitch or YouTube, we do have a graphic up to show you all the roster changes. If you haven't been around, I'll kind of give you, a brief one really quick, and then we'll go through all of them individually. So in the offseason, Quig is now the support for the Kings instead of Genetics. Neil took Quig's place on the Hounds. Teams not making a change were Ravens, Ferrymen, and Dragons. The Leviathans have recently kicked Zapman for Pandacat. That's the most recent one. That happened like just a couple weeks ago, right? And then the Glads now have Kana and Awesome Jake, and the Warriors picked up Genetics from the Kings. So that's just a pre-TLDR. Do you want to start with the Kings?
Yeah, we'll start with the Kings at the top. I think it's good for the Kings. From what I heard, at least from behind the scenes, I think that they were going to make the change regardless. I think the Hazer interview that they were talking about that. I can't remember where it was, either on Big Man's stream or in the Hazer interview. They were talking about they were probably going to make the change regardless after. Yeah. What was the tournament that we just played? It's Masters, right?
Yeah.
So after Masters. And I think Quig's really good. I think he'll fit their team really well. I am surprised, though, I will say. I do think Quig's really good. I'm surprised that they didn't get Jake a little bit. I know everybody says that like Jake wasn't the right fit and like all this stuff. And
I feel like every team
he's really
said
good,
that, which is crazy.
But honestly, like if they got Jake, I feel like it could have maybe changed their team for the better. But I guess the only thing is I guess Variety he's played with him in the past, like when he was on Renegades.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
So maybe that's like maybe the driving factor behind them not getting Jake. But I feel like Jake was a rookie then, right, when he played with him, or at least in his second year.
It was his rookie year.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not sure why they didn't look at Jake more, but it definitely makes sense that they got Quig.
This might be a hot take by me. I thought pretty much everyone would unanimously say that Jake was for the regular season and stuff so far this year, Jake was the best support for sure, in my opinion, or at least the most consistent. I thought Quig was second. I actually thought Quig has had a really good year.
Played insanely well too. Yeah,
I think Quig has played really well all year personally. So I like the Quig pickup a lot. I do think. I mean, we'll get to Jake later for sure, and kind of how his path has been through all of this stuff. I'm sure that's the most controversial as well. I see like what you're saying about Jake, but I do think I think Quig will work really well with Twig. That's going to be so annoying to say. Quig and Twig.
Quig.
Yeah, Captain Quig. That's good.
Also, I feel like some lore for Quig. Like Quig's been around for a long time. I think Quig's like really appreciates the way Twig plays. Mm-hmm. So I think he'll have a lot of respect for him as well. And I think it goes both ways. I think Twig has a ton of respect.
Did Quig have an interview with anyone? I don't know. I don't think anyone cares if I say. I don't know if it's public or not. But I think the main thing for Quig, a lot of people would ask like, oh, why would you leave the the Hounds, excuse me. I said Ravens because I was looking out on my bad. They're like, yeah, why would you leave the Hounds? They've been doing well this year. You have like this rookie team with a lot of potential. And I think stuff that you maybe don't think of as much is like Quig has played with a lot of those players, like Oath, I think he's played with for like 2-3 years, whatever it's been. I think he just wanted to play with different people because it helps you improve. Like he just wanted a different perspective and to kind of like broaden his horizon and kind of learn like different things as a player. And I mean, as far as wanting to do that, like you don't get a team that's much more experienced and professional than those guys on the Kings. So I definitely could see it being a really good fit. My only thing about the Kings is like playstyle wise, I think they've drafted, whether it was by their choice or by Genetics' choice or whatever, I think they've drafted really hard around Genetics playstyle the past few years. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how Quig changes that team or how that team changes around Quig. I mean, obviously they're defending world champions still, so super talented team. And yeah, I'm excited to see how Quig performs on that team. I'm sure he'll do well. Like I said, I think he's been one of the best supports all year.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say, like trailing off what you said, is I think like looking at the team, I don't really know. Yark's really good, obviously. He's won worlds back-to-back in 2 different roles. Yeah. So, and he has a lot of experience, so I'm sure Quig will learn a lot and be happy laning with him. And I don't really know much about Variety, but regardless, I think between Twig and Big Man, they're like very easy people to get along with. They're great teammates, and I feel like they're like that trio will just work well together. I feel like, and I feel like they'll probably have more fun than they were having with like Genetics, at least from what it sounded 100%, like, that they were saying. Like their practice environment will be better, so they'll be able to feel like they can start improving again. You know, something's a big thing.
Something else I want to touch on before we leave the Kings. 2 things actually. First, I think in a lot of these roster changes, and maybe we'll get to this after we're done going through all these teams, I feel like whenever it comes to roster changes, people always want to pick a side. Like the public, they always want to pick a side of like who was right, who was wrong, like who got the better end, who got the worse. I think mutually beneficial roster changes like do exist for sure. And I think the second thing I was going to touch on kind of leading into it, there's been a reason that teams post Worlds win have made changes. And a lot of it is, I mean, both of us did the same thing. Each year we won Worlds. We immediately made a roster change that season in the middle of the splits. And it's just because it's really hard to... I don't know how to word this. It's not a complacency thing. Like I think a lot of people say complacency, and I think sometimes that comes into play. I think it's more every team has issues no matter what. Like there's no such thing as a perfect player or a perfect team environment.
No way.
Like it just like that's a fairy tale land.
That is super fairy tale.
The problem is when you win Worlds, you kind of relax, you're excited, you're feeling good about that, and it kind of takes your mind off all the stuff that maybe you've had things that you wanted to get fixed, or maybe like little problems you've had, or like, oh, I think like we could do this or that better, whatever it is. And then it feels even worse when those things come up again if you're struggling, because now you're expected to win. And now there's a lot more pressure. And whenever teams play against you, it's like a measuring stick match. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
people want to play their best against you because it gives them a good idea of like what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. And I think the Kings experienced that. And I think that they were just on different pages. I think Genetics just didn't want to play the game the same way that they have been playing. And I think from the Kings' perspective, again, we're not gonna leak any like behind the scenes stuff that hasn't been said. That's not really our business to do. I just think it was mutually beneficial that they all thought like a change would be good. So yeah, I think that's it. I think people always wonder about the Worlds team changing every time, but I think it was the correct decision for them to make a change, no matter whose decision or what player it was.
Yeah, I am still surprised that it happened though.
I'm surprised at the way it happened, for sure.
Well, yes. I don't want to get into that at all, but yeah. I'm surprised by that too. But I'm just surprised in general because I remember I heard rumors about it like earlier on, like before the roster change even happened, and I'm like, I don't believe it till I see it. That's what I literally kept saying that every day. I'm like, people can say whatever they want, but until it happens, I don't believe it at all.
Yeah.
So like I was surprised, even though like it was talked about for so long and like. It was kind of like there was a lot of people behind the scenes like calling it and saying it and whatever, but I was still surprised when it happened 100%.
I know Twig has talked about this on stream a little bit. I think Twig has mentioned like he didn't even mind like if the change had to be him. He had almost said like I still think that'd be better for the team. And I've just always seen eye to eye with the way Twig is. Like we've just both been the same way forever, which is like if you think like you have other options, you should entertain them, and everybody should kind of look out for what's best for themselves. Because at the end of the day, like, if you're not happy with the spot you're in, you're not going to try as hard. You're not going to be as good of a teammate as you could be. So, yeah, I think Twig's been streaming a little bit, playing ranked with Quig the past few days. So I think they all just seem happier. And I think it just gives you a little bit of a kick in the butt to, get back in gear a little bit. And especially going into the Worlds phase. I mean, that's what everybody is really excited about, so.
If any of the casters are watching, I definitely want to see some Captain Quig calls if they get a sick combo in game. I feel like that's going to be a sick call to have. That'd be
awesome.
All right, let's move on to the Hounds. So the Hounds lost Quig, so they were in need of a support, and they ended up going with Neil. I was very surprised by this. What about you?
Shocked by this. So I guess maybe a behind the scenes thing I don't really mind touching on is like the order stuff happened.
Okay.
So one of the reasons that Jake ended up on the Gladiators is because he had asked to join the Hounds, which I'm sure is not a surprise to anyone because at the time that was the only spot open, right? Genetics went to the Warriors, Quig filled Genetics spot. That was kind of the order of operations there. So now the Hounds needed a support. And I think from Jake's perspective, it's kind of crazy. Like we'll get to him a little bit more later and I'll touch on it more then. But like, I don't think the Hounds were I think they were worried about the style that they were playing because I think Quig was a really big part of that team in terms of comms and strategy. And I think they were worried about, do we have a player on the roster who's able to step up and kind of fill that role? And I think that led them to hesitate on Jake. I didn't think of Neil coming back at all because I didn't realize I didn't know if Neil wanted to play. Yeah, I didn't even know if he wanted to play. I haven't talked to Neil in a bit.
Yeah. I had no idea that he was even an option at all. So.
I thought they might ask Kha'Zix or Gamma is what I thought might happen.
Yeah.
I actually thought that Gamma made sense just because he had played with Benny and I'm sure Oath knows him a good bit just from being around the SCC and NA ranked and all that type of stuff. I still think Gamma's a good player. I know that the end of the Valks year, maybe he and Kiermi and maybe I think they just kind of like weren't on the same page at Worlds, and I think it looked worse than it actually was. But they still were improving last year, and I still think Gamma has potential and is a good player. So I thought they might go with him. I don't know if Kha'Zix wants to play SPL or not, but I think the last few tournaments that he's played in, I thought he's played very well. Good. Yeah, I thought he's played well.
And he likes playing with Coast as well. So
yeah, exactly. So
I feel like they both have a lot of respect for each other. So I think that would have been a really good lane if that happened. But
I think maybe Kha'Zix isn't at a spot where he wants to move or whatever the case is with that. My biggest question mark with this team, and this is going to sound like a shot at Neil, and I don't mind saying that because I love Neil. There's a really big difference between taking a break and realizing you want to play again and like feeling like you have the passion back to compete. There's a really big difference between that and being asked to play again and then being like, sure, why not? And I think that's really important. And I know that the end of the last couple of years, I don't think Neil has been... I don't... Like, it's not that he's not trying. I just think it's like, you can't fake passion for something, you know? And I think, like, just the way we are as competitors, I think you really do have to give it your all because it's just a really tough league to win in, as is any competitive league. And I think if they get the best version of Neil, and Neil's having a lot of fun, which I hope he does. I hope Neil's having a lot of fun with the game, and he has a lot of fun scrimming with those guys. They've been successful so far this year. I think that would be very good for them, and I think he could fill the role that Quig was of just being, you know, kind of like a glue guy. Neil's great for team atmosphere stuff. Like, Neil's always been a great teammate.
That's the biggest boon that he brings.
Yeah, he's been such a good teammate. Every team he's ever been on, he's been an amazing teammate. So if it goes well, I think it's good. But this change is the biggest question mark to me. Not even because of Neil, but just because I feel like they weren't even sure what they wanted, just because they were hesitating on Jake and they went back and forth of what they were going to do. I feel like they weren't even necessarily on the same page of like what they thought was best for them. That's my concern for the Hounds.
How I look at it, I will say, like, Chuckles is their coach as well, and I think him and Neil have like a really good connection.
I mean, this is what, year 4, 5?
They won both world championships together, so I'm sure Chuck has like, if there's anybody that he wants to call for support, if there's an option, it's probably Neil. So it makes a lot of sense in that regard. But I'm still shocked that this team didn't pick up Jake regardless of fit. Like, how I look at it, like, fit is really important for teams. And it is crazy to me, too, that Quig also left this team, I will say. Even though I think Quig on the Kings is still good.
Yeah, personally, I would not have.
I think Quig on this team is also really good. And, like, he showed that he was really good. And he showed he could play with this team as well. Like, with the Kings, I still think he'll be good. But who knows how... Will he be good as the Hounds Quig? Like... Will he mesh with his teammates as well on this team? So, like...
It's kind of a weird thing because, like, I want to see people... Like, I obviously, like, want to win. You always want to do your best as a competitor.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to see anyone, like, int. Or, like, I don't want to, like, wish the worst on anyone. So, I hope it works out for Quig. I just think from my perspective, I would be pretty hesitant. Like, I just think sometimes, and it's, like, a running theme, maybe I'll get to later, like... I think the grass always seems greener.
Yes.
And it's so hard. Like, for me, making the decision.
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, same. I'm going to leave Benny and Ducky out of this. I think both of them have played very well this year. And I also think, side note, just to shout out Benny, I don't think people have given Benny enough credit. I think he's really done a good, like,
he's stepped it up a lot.
Year 1 to year 2, how he's scrimmed, his god pool, everything he's done.
The biggest thing is the scrims from behind the scenes.
He's been way more professional, and I think it's made him a much better player. I think it's made his team a lot better. So I think Benny's been having a great year 2.
Hopefully he keeps it up with the scrimming thing, because I think that's a huge thing.
It's
like,
so
if you don't take it serious in scrims, like, how can you take it serious in an actual SPL game?
Yeah, absolutely.
At least somewhat serious. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to...
You just can't into your other teammates' practice. That's the big thing. Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, even leaving Ducky and Benny out of this, who I think have both played very well this year, when you have 2 rookies as good as Oath and Coast have been, I mean, I think you could... I don't really think of teams this way, like... I think sometimes people are just like, oh, we get better player equals we're a better team. It definitely does not work that way. I think a lot of people learn that the hard way.
Yep.
And it'll always go that way. That's just, you know, kind of the naivety of being young. I think it's really leaving Oath and Coast. I think you could argue those guys have been one of the best players in their role this whole year. And you would think they're just going to keep getting better as they get more experience and as they play more and as they get more confidence. Also, this team, Coast was on ping for most of the split.
Yep.
Like, that it's such a big deal that he'll actually be in studio, not even because of his ping. He's just a good energy guy. Like, anytime you see Coast play in the booth, I feel like he's always the one to, like, they win a game instantly. He's the first one up. He, like, goes, gives everyone a high five, like, pats them on the back. He's, like, pumped up. He's energetic. He cares a lot. Like, that's such an important person to have. And I think Neil actually does add to that a lot. I think Neil's also a great guy with that type of stuff, like just bringing a positive energy. But yeah, I think we're both on the same page. I am surprised that Quig left.
I think if this team, that's a good thing to like. That's like a good thing to say, because if this team gets off to a really good start, I could see them like cruising and crushing people.
For
like,
sure, yeah.
With Neil there, like their morale will be super high. But I could also see a world where this team maybe doesn't have the greatest start, and then that's when they're gonna have to really battle back in. But that could be a good thing as well for the end of the year. It just, you never know how it works. Yeah, but it just depends. But
I mean, metas change. Like you can never predict stuff like that for sure. I do think. Maybe my last thing that I have on the Hounds, I think we both probably know from experience, how your jungle plays changes your team dynamic a lot. And I think Oath is clearly like, he's a jungler who wants to farm and wants to be in a spot to carry the game late game. He's very, very good at it. Neil does have a lot of experience playing with jungles like that. I'd say like Sam and Fred, I would say both played that way. So I think that actually is a really big positive for them. Maybe the second biggest positive Neil brings, other than him just being a great teammate, is that he will be accustomed to the way that Oath likes to play the game. So I think that is pretty important.
Yeah, I think Neil likes to drag you late into a game. That's like, he loves that kind of stuff.
Late game buff for sure.
Yeah. So, but I will say I am shocked that Quig ended up leaving the team, because like I will say, like you said, the grass is always greener, and like the other saying is, the other cliche thing is like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Because it was not like, even though they didn't win the tournament, like we ended up beating them 3-2 or whatever in the semifinals. Game 5, anything can happen. Like in any game, like if it's match point and you're going into a game, regardless of how good one team is versus the other team, any team can win a game 5 or game 7 or whatever.
It's matchups too. Like I think they're the team we've struggled the most against this year. I think we're maybe like 1-3 against them or something like that, including like the play-in like qualifier, or not the qualifier tournament, but like the tournament to decide the groups at the start of the year. I forget what it was called, but like I know we beat them in that, but they might have beaten us every time since. We've either played them like 2 or 3 times since then. And I think you guys have been the opposite. Like I think you guys lost to them the first time, and I think you've beaten them like 3 or 4 times since. I
am not a big matchup believer though.
I'm not either, but I know for some people it matters.
Yeah, but I think that might play a little factor into it, but I just think they had it. I feel like they had it figured out. Like
for sure,
they knew what they wanted to do. I feel like no offense to Neil at all, I think he's a great player, but I think Quig, the way he was playing, especially perfect for them, laning phase, not even just for the team, like because Neil's gonna come back. When you come back off a break, I think Neil's gonna be perfectly fine if the game goes late and he doesn't have a hard early game. The biggest thing for him coming back off this break, which I feel like is it's going to take him some time to get used to, especially when new maps come out and like things change. Like the last map he played professionally on was the Worlds map, where there was like Scepter. Now there's prop buff. Now like it's different with the camp spawning. There's the leashing mechanic. There's so many different things that affect the laning phase that he's going to come back, and I feel like he's going to have to practice a lot to get back in like a good laning phase. Like I feel like it's like you got to get in shape for lane in Smite. Like when you work out like for like basketball, like you got to have good conditioning so you can run the floor. Like for Smite, like
you gotta have a good lane phase so you can actually get to the point you want to. Like
like if you're a good shooter, you have to put up a lot of shots and practice a lot. But I feel like you could shoot like all the way until like, you're like 50 or like 60 years old. Like you don't have to be in good shape to be a good shooter. Like you could probably put someone who's out there who's practiced shooting, like they're 70 years old. They could probably hit a lot of threes in a game, but they can't run up and down the court and like compete with the guys. Like for Smite, like I feel like the shape that you need to get into and like the practice that really is important is the laning phase. And when you step away from the game for a long time, because I've experienced playing with Best and Divios, them coming off a break, similar, basically the same exact amount of time as Neil.
Yeah.
I feel like Best was the best mid laner in lane by a mile when I played with him right before he took his break, because we played it in the All-Star event. Speaking of All-Star events, back
it was like season 4, right?
Season 4, yeah. In that event, and even before, he was the best mid laner in lane, hands down, in my opinion. But I'm biased, of course.
I mean, I thought he was probably just the best mid in NA.
He was definitely a top mid laner for sure. But when he came back from his break, even someone as good as Best, his laning phase drastically dropped. Same with Divio. Like both of their laning phases.
We tried him out. That season with Best, we tried him out, and this was only like a couple months after. And the jungle, they made jungle changes.
Even like a couple weeks, I think. I don't even think it was that long.
Yeah. It definitely wasn't that long, but they changed the jungle between when he stopped playing and when we tried him out. And even that throws you off for sure. Like
100%.
Like he was asking like, oh, how do people play the starts now and stuff? Like it's really important, especially when your lane has kill potential in it, which I think dual lane, depending on the matchup, it can for sure.
Yeah, because that's the only thing that I see. Like I think Neil's going to be great late game. Like if the game goes late, he's going to be probably one of the best players you could have on your team. It's just that early game and coming back off a break, I feel like that's where he's going to struggle the most, and that's probably where he's going to have to put the most time into like getting back into feeling the game out, because he's been coaching the Ravens, so like he knows how the game flows this year, so it's not like going to be like different, but actually getting in there and playing the lane,
that's different than watching it for sure.
That's the hardest part. Like the early game in Smite is the most important thing, regardless if you're a good early game team or not. Like you have
regardless of meta even too, like there can be metas that go late game, but like if you give pro players an advantage early, like they can win no matter what the meta is.
Yeah, I've always said this, like Kabam could attest to it. Anybody that could play with me is attest to this. If you get behind early and you're playing from behind, it is harder to play from behind. It sounds stupid. Oh. It's harder to play from it sounds obvious and stupid. But if you're behind, it's harder to play. If you're ahead, it's easier to play.
Yep.
You could get ahead in different ways. Like you don't have to get kills. Like
that doesn't mean you have to play the snowball.
Well.
It just means you just have to be in a good enough spot where you're not constantly on the back foot and one decision like ruins your game.
Exactly.
Or one mistake, I mean.
Because I feel like even our run, like this past, like we were probably, you could argue that we weren't the best early game team, but we didn't lose the game in the early game.
Yeah, you never lost a game off it for sure.
We were losing games off it all the time in the regular season. I feel like that's why we lost 5. That's why our record was so bad.
We were 3-7, and I think like Cherry and I looked at the stats and stuff. Like, I think we got first blooded like 80% of games or something. Like we were just always in losing. It matters a lot for sure.
Yeah, because I feel like anybody in the SPL is good late game. Like if you put them on a character on a spot where they're in a
character they're comfortable on, a spot they're familiar with.
Not even that. Like if you just throw them in any role, or not any role, in their own role on any character, like when the game is like even or they have a little bit of a lead, I feel like
from ahead. Oh yeah, for sure.
If you put any SPL player in that situation, 20 minutes into the game,
you're feeling so confident.
They are gonna play extremely well, regardless of who they are. Even if you think, like, even for the fans that are watching, if you think they're the worst player in the game, like they are going to play very well regardless of what you think and regardless of what you say. Like if you put yourself in that spot, you're going to be playing a lot better. So that's my biggest concern with like Neil coming back from a break that I look at it, because like I think what you said is perfect. Like Coast, really good for team morale, and then adding someone who's like, you could argue, which I think he's the best person in Smite's history probably for team morale. Like ever, regardless, when times get rough, like Neil's there, like he's gonna play well and he's gonna raise everybody's spirits. I feel like
he never gets too high and never gets too low. Like he's just always.
I feel like having him and Coast on the same team, like if they get off to like a good starter, if they find something that works for them, I could see them being really good. But at the same time, I could see it being really hard just because him coming back off of a long break and then just having to learn the game, like from the laning perspective, because like. That's the hardest thing for sure about playing Smite. Like the late game's easy. Like anybody could play late game, in my opinion. It's the early game that separates players from other players for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the Levi's. So the Levi's one.
I was also surprised by this.
Yeah, I was. So it's really funny. I don't have any public record of this. I don't say. I don't think. Maybe I do. Like on a random stream VOD. I actually called this from the start of the year. I knew Panda wouldn't stay out the whole year. I knew
that too. I called that as well.
I knew this would be the team because I know Shinto,
I didn't know the team.
Shinto and Ronnie like him, and of course like Alec has played with him forever. And I just thought if the Levi's were in a poor spot, that if they were going to make a change, I thought Panda there was the most obvious fit, because the thing about Max is I don't think he would come back for a team that he doesn't think has a chance to win. And I think Levi's were just kind of the perfect storm of like, Shinto was just one of the mid laners who didn't have his visa right away, right? So their regular season struggled a little bit because of that. I don't think they ever really fully figured it out. I don't think they were horrible. Like I think, they were like 3-7, the same as us in our group, in the group of death, aka the Warriors stomping everybody. But yeah, like we struggled in group, but I don't think either of our teams really underperformed at tournaments too much. I think they played you guys, right? I think you guys played well against them. I don't remember if the games were close or not, but like, I don't think Zap fed. I don't remember Zap playing horribly. I don't think Zap's played poorly all year. So to me, I'm not surprised. Like, if Panda was going to come back, this was the team. I always thought that for sure. And I did call this from the start of the year. My thing is Zap has this, public record that everyone knows about of not being the greatest scrimmer. Definitely.
That was what I was going to touch as well.
Definitely true. Probably the main reason that they made the change. I'm kind of like, I don't think I should have to explain. Like, I obviously think Panda's an amazing ADC. I think you can make the argument that he's one of, if not the most talented ADCs of all time. Yeah. I love the guy, of course. I'm not sure this makes him better. I actually kind of think at tournaments it might make him worse, and it's not because of Panda at all. It's because Zap was like, the leap that the Levi's made in Season 8 when they picked up Zap was so big just because they had that calming presence in the late game. They had someone who was experienced. They had someone to make those calls, to give them kind of like this identity and this like flow to the game. If Zap wasn't doing that anymore, I have no way of knowing that. I'm not on the team. If he wasn't doing that anymore, maybe they felt like they needed to change that anyways. But I feel like when it comes tournament time, when it comes world split, like Zap is always somebody that you probably want to have on your team because he's a really smart player. He's really good at that stuff. And I don't know who fills that role on this team. Panda and Alec, I don't think fill it. It's not that, like,
not Kenneth. I played with him. I will say not Kenneth either.
I was gonna say I don't know about Kenneth, Shinto, and Ronnie. I haven't played with them. Fine and Max, or Fine and Panda, like, it's not like they're quiet players. Like, they're both very talkative. They're really, really good about like communicating their lane. They give you a lot of confidence when they're ahead. Like, they have a lot of confidence in themselves and their teammates. Like, when they're ahead, they know they can carry the game. They'll tell you like what they can do, what they want to do. But they're not like strategy guys as much when it comes like a whole team thing, if that makes sense. Like, they're just really, in my opinion, they're just really good at like knowing their role. Like Alec, for example, he'll give other people ideas. He'll be like, oh, like, I actually think like this is pretty good in your role. Maybe you could try that, whatever. And like, they'll give you hints, but it's way different than having someone like Zap who's like, this is how we're going to play the map. This is our game plan. We're going to play for mid game, like whatever it is, like whatever like formula Zap has at the time. I feel like he's just a way better communicator than honestly almost anyone in the SPL.
And Zap's gonna execute it as well, regardless of what situation. If you're in Game 5 of Worlds versus Game 3 of a regular season game, if he has a strategy, like that team will probably execute the strategy pretty well if he's on it.
You know what else? I think you said this, and this was a separate time of like comparing Smite players to NBA players. You said when you think of Smite fundamentals, you think of Zap.
Yes.
And that is a very true thing. Like, he's just been around for so long. He just is so poised, all that type of stuff. And obviously Panda's been around a long time too. But yeah, I think I am skeptical of. I do think they'll be better in the regular season. For sure, they'll be better in the regular season, in my opinion. I don't even think that has to do with the change at all. I just think it's, if Shinto is actually here, I think it's huge for them. I think Shinto, kind of similar to Coast, like, you can tell if you ever get a listen in on Levi's comms or like any of their Twitter clips, like when Shinto's going and he starts like yelling and he's pumped up, like, he's so funny. So I do think that'll be really good. I think
Kenneth's the same way too. I feel like they're both sure, like if that
Kenneth's
team
pop off when he got like the Quadra or Penta or whatever it was. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, like I don't think he'll be the one that like maybe rallies the troops and like has a plan that can like execute in game or whatever. But like if he gets going in game, like he's gonna get hype.
Okay, my only other thing I'm gonna say about the Panda change is, I touched on it with Neil as well. There's a really big difference between getting your passion back and really feeling motivated and wanting to play, and being asked to play and just being like, sure, I'll do it. Like, it's not that big of a time commitment. And I think it's way more that with Panda, or historically has been. Again, I don't feel like it's like weird to say. He's been very like public facing with us, like on stream or in the past. Like,
even said in his Q&A,
yeah, like, he doesn't love living in Georgia. Like, he hasn't loved scrimming and all that other stuff. Like, Max, I don't think int scrims in the way that like Zap is known to int scrims, but also like, I mean, last year Max was definitely not the most motivated or most like into it scrimmer that I've played with him. I've played with like a lot of different versions of him, and he could say that's because I was washed and I was inting, or whatever. Like, he could have whatever, like circumstances change, right? It could be, who knows what's going on. That's kind of my only concern. If Max is like, if he's 100% himself, he's feeling passionate. I know he's been playing a ton. He's been streaming a ton, if you guys haven't been watching him. if he's been pumped up and he wants to play and he's passionate, I think it'll be great for him, and I'm happy for him. And I think it'll also be good for their team. But if it's not that, I don't think it's better for them at all. And I think missing Zap could be felt for sure.
Yeah, for these first three, I will say I'm very surprised. I will say though, one last thing I guess on the Panda change from Zap is that if you are going to replace Zap, Panda Cat is a pretty good option.
Yeah, it's a good option for sure.
So like it's not like they got some like random person that doesn't make it's Panda Cat. He's really good at the game, obviously. Yeah. So
I think it's more the thing we were touching on with the other teams. It's a lot less like the individual player, like is it an upgrade or is it a downgrade? It's more like just how the team works around it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I feel like the other thing is too, I feel like I will say I have a lot of respect for Zap, and I'm probably really biased because I played with him, and I think I learned a ton from him. Yep. And just he's made me a better player, and he's made me a good player. I feel like he's one of the reasons why I'm as good as I am today. Like I feel like he doesn't get enough respect from like just the rest of the SPL players.
Honestly, him, he's just one of those players. I think maybe you got this reputation at sometimes. Maybe I get it at sometimes, but I don't think so as much. Like, if you just like feed in ranked, or you just feed in some SPL games, or you have some like down moments, people are really quick to hop on like the hate bandwagon. But there's so much that a player like Zap brings to your team, for sure. Okay, last thing on the Levi's, I just thought of it.
Okay.
Who's getting the farm on that team? Because they are all turbo farmers, man. Even Ronnie, like Ronnie's not. I don't know if I'd say he's like a super selfish player, but like Ronnie is definitely not a like I'll play from 5 levels down. I don't mind. Like every single player on that team loves turbo farming. Like Alec or Finoke and Panda Cat, they both love being like the quote unquote like strong side of the map. We know Shinto loves to farm, adapting the same way he loves to farm and get to late game. They will be they have a lot of carry potential on that team. Like all of those players, if they're in a good spot late game, they can absolutely solo carry a game. But yeah, I think kind of the early game would be my biggest question mark with that team.
I think if they blast the lane early game somewhere, they could probably get farmed just off kills. That's what my guess would be. They just have to blast somewhere as hard as possible.
I mostly am saying as a troll lesson, like how it actually goes. It's just funny because like in terms of like people wanting to turbo farm, like that's the biggest turbo farm team I've ever seen.
100%.
Okay. The Glads are the team I'm most excited to talk about. Easy one first is I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. They kick Scary. There's been a lot of stuff publicly about Scary not being the best for showing up to scrims. All that type of stuff has been documented. I don't want to sit here and shit on Scary. So they kick Scary. I think it is good for them. I think improving your scrim environment is really important. I do think Scary absolutely hard carried that team at the qualifier tournament 100%. To make SPL. He played so sick. I don't think his performances since then, at the very least, if you don't think they've been good, they definitely haven't been consistent.
Yep.
And I think when you're a team that is struggling, having consistency in your practice and in your like SPL games is really important. I'm really excited to see Kana. I think he's played pretty well at all of the like crossover like SCC SPL tournaments. I think for a lot of people he's been kind of like the quote unquote like next person up in solo that people were really excited about. From everything I've heard from European guys that played with him or played around him, it sounds like he cares a lot. He really he likes to scrim. It seems like people have had good things to say about him as a teammate. I'm just really excited for anytime new players get an opportunity. I felt the same way with like Coast at the start of the year and Oath. Like I just love seeing younger players or like rookies get a chance to like you learn so much your first few weeks and stuff. So I'm really excited to see Kana play for sure.
I will also say like I think Kana, oh my god, I lost my train of thought. I'm so stupid right now.
Kana scrims consistency.
What was I gonna say about Kana? I'll come back to it if I remember.
Sure.
But I can't remember. I did. What's it called? Was it Blue? Who do we have on that lot? Or was it Blues or Mosball? That's like I just lost my. I think it was Blues, and I'm like, don't worry, this happens to me all the time.
At least one of us. Yeah, it's gonna happen.
Oh man, it happens all the time. I'm fresh. I want to. If I remember, I'll bring it back. But,
sure. Do you want me to keep going? You can just cut me off if you think of it.
Yeah, you can keep going. That's fine.
Okay. And then their other change was they replaced Inbound with Awesome Jake. Okay, they got away with robbery. Absolute highway robbery. No disrespect to Inbound at all. I actually thought
he had a really good year.
Yeah, I thought Inbound
compared to his previous year, he's been playing very well.
Yeah, I thought he played well too. I think he's another one of those players like Zap or whoever. Like, I think his KDA always looks worse than he's actually playing. I just think that's the way he plays. I think Twig is another player like that for sure. Like, Sino, same way. You need players like that on your team for sure. And I think when you're the player who's like that and your team isn't winning, everybody's going to say you're sucking.
The problem is, too, is if you're a player like that and you're on a bottom team consistently, then it's hard because then people are going to be like, well, look at that. But
exactly.
But like this year, like previous years, you could argue that he was just not playing very well.
Not play well. Like,
but this year, he's been playing very good, I will say.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, you can have whatever opinion you want about Inbound for sure. And it's nothing personal against him. I think you could argue for almost any team. Like I said, I think Jake's been, if not the best, definitely the most consistent performing support this year. It's really hard to not say, like, he's definitely an upgrade for this team. And it's not because Inbound was bad, like you said. Like, I think he's played well this year. It's just, I just think Jake's been really, really good. I think Jake has arguably been one of the best players at the meta that has been present so far this year. I think it's actually so good for this team. One, I think Stu and Jake get along. So I think
they'll have a good lane, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Stu, I don't think had the best laning phases historically with Inbound. Maybe season 8, that was like all around meta and stuff. I think they were pretty good in dual lane, but I think they have been
okay this year too.
I think they struggled lately. Like they lost,
right.
Like the SEC games and stuff.
That is true. Yeah. That's a big thing. I feel like
they had pretty bad laning phases those games.
Yeah.
So I do think that's a big deal. I think Stu. Is this only the third support he's played with? He played with you Inbound. Maybe he played with Hurry Roll Swap? I don't remember.
No, he played with Yark.
Hardcore, that's right. Yeah, he played with Hardcore. But I mean, even then, Hardcore is a roll swap, so I don't even know if I count that. So this is like the third SPL support that he's played with. I think it's a different look for Stu. I think Jake's one of the better laning supports in general. So I think it'll help out Stu a lot. I think Kana will help their scrims. I think, honestly, I think this team. At one point I said I maybe still think that way, like in terms of on paper and it translating in game, this might be the only team that I'm really confident like they got better for sure. Like I'm really confident that this team got better.
This is the only thing I'm not like out of all the changes, this is the one that really doesn't surprise me. Yeah. I will say I'm surprised that this is a team Jake ended up on.
Just because of the other people not taking him, you're saying, right?
I guess I'm biased because I do think the way Jake plays is really good. And I think the way he was playing this year, like, even if it wasn't a good fit, like, that's what everybody said that didn't pick him up or whatever, like, for the Kings or for the Hounds or whatever. Yeah. If it's not a good fit, sure, it's not a good fit. It doesn't work out. But if someone's playing as good as Jake has played this entire year, and the player that Jake is too is like, he's like an anomaly kind of, because you don't know, teams don't know what to expect from him sometimes. And like, if you insert him into a different environment, you don't know how he's going to work unless you put it there. And I feel like it's worth a try with how good he's been playing. And like, I am so shocked still that the Kings or the Hounds didn't pick it up. I guess like I said earlier, it makes a little bit more sense.
I can see the way they were thinking. I just don't know if I fully agree, you know?
I really do think like Jake would have had a good showing on either of those teams if they picked him up. So I'm still shocked by that. But I'm not shocked that if he was available and the Warriors were like, yo, what's up? Yeah, let's get Jake. Yeah,
for
the
Glads, it's so hard. Like, you do feel a little bit bad for Inbound, but it's like, at the same time, like, this is all of our jobs. And I just think, like, it is the nature of the job. Like, anyone can be kicked at any given time. And it's just how it goes. And it's not necessarily, like, personal. It's just how it goes. I do want to touch on a couple things. One thing that you said, I think there was a lot of narrative, mainly from the Warriors roster change, picking up genetics, that people were like questioning Jake's God pool and all this other stuff.
Yeah, I think that's stupid.
The main reason I think it's so dumb, there is so much value in having a player like Jake who is, one, he's literally like top picking almost every game. Like, I know there were some people who were like, oh, well, what if they like put 5 bans into him and then he had a bottom 2? Does he still have a God pool? It's like, well, one, he's not a player who minds top picking. Some people hate top picking. I'm sure you've played with people like that. I've definitely played with people like that. Some people do not want to blind pick no matter what. They hate being counter pick. I think Jake doesn't really care that much. Like, Jake is down. He's down to pick wherever, and Jake will play a consistent god pool no matter what. And that is the main thing I like for this team, is not only do you pick up a solo laner who is excited to be in the league, who really wants to scrim, who's young and is going to improve and have a lot of energy, you pick up a support who doesn't mind spamming literally the same character every game for like 3 months straight, because that's what Jake did on the Warriors. And when you do that, it brings so much consistency to a team, and it helps you build that foundation that you really need to like start getting on the same page together and to start winning. I think that will be so good for this team. And the last thing I want to touch on, I've seen people say like, oh, well, wasn't Inbound like the shot caller of this team, their main voice, whatever. This is going to sound really aggressive, but it's kind of the only way I can word it. Like, if you're the main voice on the team and the team isn't winning, like, who cares? Like, at some point, you need to like start having the ability to win, and it has to translate. Like, I think it's different when I touch on it with like Zap. Zap has a history of winning. He has a history of being a leader and a main caller on teams that have he has 3 world championships, and one of them with that team. That is really different than a player like Inbound being the main voice. And again, it's no disrespect to him. They haven't been winning, and he hasn't been winning. And it's not because he's played poorly, because again, I think he's played well this year. I don't think he's played bad at all. I think this is a really good spot for people like Kierme, hypothetically, maybe Snoopy. I know just from, I'm personal friends with Snoopy. He's been one of my closer friends in Smite for a while, so maybe I'm just running copium from that. Snoopy is just one of those people, like, he will not step on other people's toes. Like, he's not super confrontational, and he'll kind of go with the flow. So if someone like Inbound is talking a lot and is the main voice, Snoopy's not going to be the person to like yell over you or talk over you. But he has been around for a while, and I do think like if he sees an opportunity to do gold or something, it's not like he's not going to say anything. Like, he'll make a call, he'll do it. And I think Kierme to me, as like a personality type, I think could be really good at doing that type of stuff, of being like, you don't have to be like the only team leader, you know. I don't necessarily think you have to be that, but like just being someone who like brings good energy to scrims and tries really hard and is like wanting to improve, wants to get everybody on the same page. Like, I think Kierme just brings a really good like positive energy from everything I can tell. And I think this change can kind of force Kierme to have to do that. And I think that's probably a role that like I think he has potential to be good at. I've heard Kana is also pretty good at doing that from solo lane. So that's their main struggle, in my opinion, is figuring out like who that voice is.
I want to say a couple things too in relation to what you were talking about. I think what you said about like Inbound and not have, like, I couldn't have said it any better, because I feel like that's a big thing. Because like, who cares if you're the main shot caller if the team isn't winning? Like, it is not. I don't think it's a mean thing to say at all. Like,
no,
it doesn't matter. Like, if
it's not personal to him.
Yeah,
it's just the thing.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think it's right. And the other thing too is, like, me and you can sit here all day and speculate and talk about how teams work and how things are set in comms. Like, this is very important. Like, I want everybody to know that, like, a lot of the things that me and Mike are saying are almost all of them, besides unless we say something about our own team, or maybe
or like players we played with in
the past. And even then, things can have changed from when I've played with them. But like, it's all speculation. And like, I feel like a lot of fans and even team or players from other teams, or just anybody in general, looks at it and they have their own opinion and they have their own way they look at things, and they're like, well, this guy does this for this team, and this guy does this, and this guy does that, and that's why they're good. Or this guy does this, and this guy says that, and this guy calls this, and that's why this team is good. But no one's gonna ever know, because no one else is in the comms besides those players on that team. So I feel like it's we could sit here all day and talk about what we think of like how the Warriors team was in the past. I'm sure I played with Stu last year. He definitely called things. It's not like he was a quiet person. Like, even though if he gets labeled that, like, Stu definitely communicated things, and like, everybody can talk in the SPL. If they couldn't, they wouldn't be playing. Like, there isn't people that are just dead silent. Even if they're quieter, they will say things in the game at some point.
You know what else it is? Even if people aren't the best communicator, it's what you said earlier. Like, if people are ahead and they're in a spot, like if their confidence starts going, they're gonna like reflect that, you know. Like, most people, like, even if you're known as like a quiet player, if you get ahead and you're in a good spot and you feel like you can carry the game or you feel like you can do something, you're gonna say it.
Yeah.
And when one person starts going, normally it snowballs. Like other people start getting involved, everybody gets confident, everybody's like, yes, we're in the spot we want to be in, like what do we want to do, and you get on the same page. And it just takes like one moment to do that. And that's why I think this change is so good, because Jake will bring consistency to their duo lane. Like I think their duo lane, just their actual laning phase, I think will get a lot better with Jake. I think it'll help out Snoopy as well. I think, and Kirmi. Like Jake's just a consistent player, and you could argue all day about, oh well, what if like gods change, meta change, will he perform? It doesn't matter. Jake will be consistent. Whatever Jake is doing, whatever he decides he's doing, or whatever they decide he's doing, he'll do it, and you know what you're gonna get from him.
Yeah, I hate so much almost everybody that's talked about it, which I completely disagree with. Even though I have no idea. Like I this is my opinion. Like, there's no way Jake says nothing when he's playing. The way he plays, he has to at least say some stuff. Like,
or at least say like who he can kill, or like can he go on this guy or something.
Or like I just bought this item, or like I can pluck this guy, or I can do that. Like he's definitely saying, like people make it like everybody labels him as someone who doesn't talk, and like it drives me crazy watching all these interviews. People are just labeling him this way, and I feel like once you have labels are so important to the other people, I guess, in the SPL and like the public. Like once you get labeled as something, it's so hard to break out of that. And I feel like
you're saying individually or how people see you.
Both, honestly. Like if you get labeled as doing something like that, like people are gonna see you that way if you're individually like that. Is what like I feel like it's so hard to break out of that, and I feel like Jake has been really unfairly labeled this during these roster changes, because like the Kings or the Hounds didn't pick him up, and they both basically said the reason why we didn't pick him up is because he doesn't talk. That's basically like
at the end of the day, that's what they said. Yeah,
but that's like obviously that's not like all the reasons or whatever. But that's like the main reason why they didn't get him. But they're like, yeah, Jake is still really good or whatever. Yeah. But if Jake's really good, why wouldn't you get him? And it drives me nuts when they say that, because if they truly think that, they would have got him, in my opinion.
Maybe transitioning this into the Warriors change. So the Warriors change, of course, is Genetics off the Kings, Jake off the Warriors. Genetics took a spot on the Warriors. That's what got all this started. Something I really had an issue with, and I'll just call names because I don't care. Like Hazer did an interview with Genetics and Netroid. And in my opinion, what Netroid said in that interview, a couple things he said, some things he said, like everybody talked about like the jumping thing. And when Netroid explained that, it's like, okay, like that's more of a meme than anything. Sure, whatever. But he had said a lot of the stuff he said, it just sounded like going into the year, he was worried that Jake wouldn't talk that much, or that he wasn't like a shot caller or a leader from support. And I think everybody has this like preconceived notion that like a support has to be the leader, or a support has to be the main shot caller. Like I'm going to bring up like Raffer as an example. Like Raffer was not the main shot caller on those Energy and Epsilon teams. And those were one of the, like probably one of, if not the most successful individual teams of all time. They were really good. And it's not that Raffer was mute. It's just that they all talked a lot. Like I know ML was like a big voice on that team, and ML was a big caller with that team. Like everybody doesn't need to do everything. And from the way Netroid was talking about it, it just sounded like he just wanted him to be how he remembered Genetics. He just wanted him to be a really dominant voice who like led the game and was like the main shot caller. And I think that's ridiculous to try to make any player that way. I don't know how you feel, but like I've been in spots, depending on like who my other teammates are, sometimes I have to do a lot more talking, sometimes I have to do a lot less talking. Like there's so many nuances to that. Like one, if you're expected to do all the calling, and like I would say like maybe it's like a cope take, but like for myself this year, for example, like I'm talking a lot more this year than I did with Scream, for example. It's not because other people on my team don't talk. It's like a game plan thing. Like Scream has, and like Twig, like other junglers I've played with, have been really good at helping like make a game plan. And if they're ahead or whatever, they can help plan around the game and like do whatever. I'd say like Benji was that way in solo lane. Like it could be any role. Like any role, you can have people who help you game plan. Jake might not be a game planner, but if you expect him to do that, like if you have to carry the load of like planning game and calming everything and like doing all this stuff, it's hard to do that and also play at your best all the time. And it just sounded like they wanted Jake to be perfect, and it really is a grass is always greener, in my opinion, thing. And like my main gripe with the Warriors pickup, that team, I don't think they realize, like, they actually struck gold with the way they fit together. Like, it's not a secret. Like, this offseason, they were the last team to be formed. That doesn't mean they, like, I think a lot of people are like, oh, that means they're the worst team or something. That doesn't mean that at all. Like, just because you're the last formed team doesn't mean you're bad by any means. Clearly they weren't. I think they got along together so well because I think their dynamic, in my opinion, was just perfect from the start. Like, Royd and Jake were just both very good players. They would just play pressure duo. They would run it down. Like, Panny, in my opinion, has been one of the best, like, ganking junglers, I guess, for years. Like, he's really good at, like, ganking and helping his lane, do all that. He's obviously a carry player. He's good at that. Daniel or Pegon, I would say the same way. Like, Pegon's just one of those mid laners. Like, he's down to rotate. He's down to give up a mid wave to go gank, help lanes. Like, they all played, in my opinion, a really similar style, or at least a style that fit together really, really well. And I just feel like it's a case of, like, the annoying thing to me, they had a chance to win Worlds beforehand. Like, they were good before. I mean, I think every team should think they have a chance to win Worlds. But, you know, like, from the outside, they had the longest win streak ever, whatever it was. They obviously had a chance to win Worlds as it was. And they still have a chance to win Worlds, as does every team. And they could do really well, and it could look like they're proven right or whatever. The annoying thing to me is just that I just feel like it's kind of taking it for granted, and it's being a little bit young and naive, in my opinion, about just, like, I think they're saying, like, Gen X is a really good player, obviously. He's been very good the past few years. That's not a question on, like, his talent or anything like that. It is just a different style, for sure. Like, everything I heard from the Warriors players, everything they've said publicly, they've been so adamant about being worried about, like, if Jake's style changes and if, like, Jake can adapt with a meta or whatever. I don't know if this is, like, a rough newsflash, but, like, if a style changes, like, one, you can't predict it, and also Jake's style was your style as well. Like, the way Jake played is how all of them played as well. Like, they were all really good at playing for pressure, playing for kills, playing really quick around the map. The way Jake played, all of them did that. If that suddenly isn't, like, meta, or you're suddenly struggling with that, Jake would not be the only one struggling. And I just kind of think Jake got scapegoated a little bit. And it's insane to even think he got scapegoated. They lost one set all year. They were still second at the tournament. It's not like they played horribly. Like, maybe you could say they didn't have the best finals, but it's not like... Also, like, this has also been public. Jake knew there was a chance he was going to get kicked going into that tournament. So even if you say he didn't have the best finals, or they as a team didn't have the best finals,
he plays so well.
How are you going to play your best when you're hearing that you're going to be kicked? Like, it's just insane.
Yeah, I just honestly, I hope the best for Jake, except when he plays against me, obviously.
Yep, same.
But, like, his whole situation, it just sucks for him this year because he played so well, and I feel like the team that he's on right now is still good, so I think he should be happy with it at least. Like, even though people say that he ended up on the Gladiators, it sucks.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's almost weird to say, like, it sucks for him, because I feel like it almost implies that his team's bad now. But I think that team will improve a lot. So.
Yeah, with the changes they made, like, they were right there to being a really good team, I feel like. But I will say it again. I've said it I don't know how many times this episode, but when we've talked about, I'm shocked the Kings and the Hounds. It just was like I feel like the Kings knew they weren't going to get him for sure, and then the Hounds, like, only thought about it. Like, I feel like it should have been maybe, like, the Kings should have thought about it, and the Hounds should have been like, it felt like he wasn't even close to joining one of those teams, which is just shocking.
I'm not going to lie. I think for the Hounds, I just think off the way your season was going alone, it's such a big risk to not take Jake. Like, I think they saw it as a risk to take Jake because they were worried about the comms and all that stuff. I think it's the other way around.
I agree with you.
I think the safe play, quote unquote, 100%. Was to take the player who's super practiced. Jake plays all the time. He's always practiced. He's been one of the best players in the meta. He's done really well this year. Your team is doing well together. I don't think it would be that hard to mesh them. And also, Coast has been a really good laning phase ADC. Jake's been a really good laning phase support. Like, it can't be that hard to figure that out, you know? Like, I think it's actually a really big deal. And I also want to say, like, I don't think this is, like, they even say that themselves. I don't think this is, like, secret SPL information. Like, they don't really play off Ducky's lane that much. Like, the way Ducky plays, like, Ducky is always the weak side on that team. Like, Ducky's always playing gods that are like really good team fighters. He's really, really good at not getting ganked or not getting behind. Like, he's good at stalemating his lane. It's not to say he's a bad laner by any means. He's definitely not a bad laner. It's
just their game plan.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's a stalemating solo, and then they want to play for team fights. Oath is the same way. Having a strong duo lane is really important for the way that team plays. And in my opinion, Neil's weakest attribute as a player throughout his career has been his laning phase, and Jake's strongest has arguably been his laning phase. So I just think it was a no-brainer for that team, in my opinion. It has nothing to do like with anything against Neil. I just can't believe they didn't take him.
Yeah. I guess I'm just a big Jake fan too. I'll admit I'm a little biased just because I've played against him a ton, and I just think he's really good.
I also think, to be fair, like, even if I agree with you, and also it's hard to not be biased for him just given the situation that he was with, you know, and not be like sympathetic with it. Sorry to cut you off, but yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too is like with the Oni Warriors, with them getting genetics. I know you were talking about how the grass is always greener. That might be the case. It might not be. Like,
you never know.
Who knows? Maybe it'll be better for them. Maybe they'll have like a longer streak, but I'm not gonna let that happen this time.
Yeah, zero chance.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone's gonna let that happen. So I just, they're not going to be better than they were in the first phase, at least during the regular season, in my opinion.
Yeah. If they're better for Worlds, they're better for Worlds.
You can maybe argue that they're better for Worlds, but if they don't end up winning Worlds, then who knows if they would have won with Jake or not.
Also,
that's the other thing too.
Look, as much as people like to say pressure doesn't affect them, and I do think, like, for me, when you're actually on stage in a game, I don't feel pressure. But when you're someone like Sot, for example, who streams like 200 plus hours a month, or Panny streams a lot or whatever, it's really, there's no such thing as people being unaffected or being immune by it. And they've gotten a lot of public backlash for this decision, and they will feel pressure from it. Whether they say they do or not, they will feel pressure from it. And I think it's highly unlikely that they go, whatever it was, 15-0 again or whatever. Like, it's highly unlikely they have another streak like that. There's a lot of pressure on them to like prove that they made the right decision, and it is literally Worlds win or bust, and that is such a hard spot to put yourself in. And in my opinion, you've kind of reset that process of like, I don't know, it's not like good to lose, but it's losing is good to learn, and you need to learn to win, if that makes sense. So like, kind of by proxy, like, it's good to lose. No team at this day and age in Smite's history, like, maybe you could argue like Energy, like in the Stone Age of Smite or whatever, like, it's unrealistic to think you're going to be formed as a team. You're going to go through the whole year, have no issues, have no patches that like you're struggling to adapt to, have no like inner like team dynamic that you're struggling to address, and you're just going to win. You're just going to walk through and breeze through the year. Like, you are going to struggle. You're going to have times where you have a setback. And in my opinion, they just completely skipped that stage with Jake. And it's like resetting almost as if you're a new team. And when you do that, no matter how talented the player is, and Gen X is a for sure talented player, and they're all good players, like, you're kind of rolling the dice a little bit, in my opinion, on that.
Yeah, like, the thing is, like, last year, I feel like every team that ends up winning has something happen to them that is like a hard road for them during that year. For sure. Like, you have to battle through the year. Like, I will always say this, like, I will also say this too before I say what I'm going to say. Everybody has their own circumstances, and like, some people's circumstances are a lot worse than other players, especially when they're playing. But if you're playing the SPL, like, I love it. If I didn't like playing the SPL right now, I would not be doing it anymore. And the job is, like, in my opinion, it's a great job. It's easy. All we're doing is playing games or whatever, like, on the surface. And that it's true. Like, if you look at it, we're a bunch
of big kids.
It's like, if you look at it from like the real world perspective,
sure.
Like, it's very easy. It's an amazing job. I love it still so much. If I didn't, I would be done 100%.
Yep.
And I want to say that before I say this, but going through the year of playing, it is basically your entire life.
It's hard. Yeah.
And everybody, it's not even that it's hard. Everybody goes through like trials and tribulations basically the entire year. Like, for example, last year, for me, like, you can argue and say that we should have just lost after we lost we ended up
Cyclone
getting rid of Cyclone. because people didn't agree with how practice was going. We wanted a better practice environment, and then Layers ended up leaving the team as well right before Worlds, and we ended up getting 2 players, and we had a pretty good run. I'd say even though we didn't win, we still made the final. Like, I feel like anybody could have just been like, yeah, you know what, whatever, who cares? Throw in the towel. Like, you got to battle, like, if you want to win. And I feel like the Kings last year too, they were having their issues.
That's literally why they kicked Metroid. Yeah. They were struggling, and they were like, we gotta do something.
Yeah, exactly. We got to do something to change this, and we got to battle back in. And they did that, and they were crushing everybody with their core. And like, I just
saying something about loving the job or something.
No, it's just like they never saw that team after they got Jarcore. I was just trying to think about how I was going to say that. They never saw like what loss feels like until this year, and I feel like once they started losing, that's when it started feeling really bad for that team, and I feel like that's when they maybe started thinking about making a change. Like you were saying, maybe it would be Twig earlier, maybe Genetics or whatever, and it ended up being Genetics going to the Warriors. But like you said again, this team, 15-0, they didn't really have anything they had to battle through this year yet. They had no challenge besides, I guess, our finals match that I played against them. Like that was like their first challenge that they ran into, and basically they said, yeah, we're done. We're laying down. We're throwing in the towel. Let's get somebody else in here. It's not like they were a team that was struggling and tried to battle a little bit. As soon as they met one challenge, they're like, yep, we're done with that. So hopefully if they have like Genetics coming on the roster, if they don't start out well, that probably will be the best for that team, in my opinion. Like if they have like a rocky start, and then they battle through it. Like, I could see them maybe having, like, a bad start, and then maybe they make another roster change. Who knows? Like, people... Like, you never know what could happen. But if they have a rough start and they don't make a roster change, they battle through it, they'll probably be...
Genetics is going to kick Metroid again.
They'll probably be a better team for it if they do it. But if they have a good start and they're just winning, like, every game, which... Who knows? Maybe they win every game again, and they're just cruising or whatever.
Yep.
And then they have their first challenge or whatever... Are they just going to do the same thing again where they're like, okay, I guess it's over, GG? Like, they don't need... You got to battle, I feel like. And I feel like they didn't really give Jake a chance to battle through, like, a trial that their team had to go through. So...
Yeah, I agree. I think last thing I have on the current roster changes, I know we've been going for a bit. Maybe we can touch on some other stuff outside of this roster update, maybe if you want to. But when's the last time half the teams changed their support? I feel like changing a roaming role, like a support or jungle role, is a really big deal. And 4 teams have a different support. That's kind of crazy mid-season.
I didn't even think about that.
I was just looking at with it all being in front of my face. It made me think of it like that's pretty crazy. Like that is such a. It's not that support's like the most OP or most impactful role. It definitely can be. I mean, any role can be. But it is a really important role for like how your team meshes together, in my opinion, and like how it fits together. I think like that's kind of the nature of support jungle. Like I said, it's just a roaming role, you know, like you play more than just your lane. And that is a really big dynamic shift for the entire SPL, honestly. Like half the support's changing. It's pretty crazy to me.
Yeah, I guess it's like when you have somebody coming off like as like renowned as Genetics coming off the Worlds. If one domino falls like that, then a lot of teams probably get involved with it, because that's kind of what happened, right? Because
really it's just the Neil thing that like adds another, right? But like it could have been as simple as Jake and Genetics swapped, and then when the Kings wanted someone else, then it could be as simple as they pick up, you know, Quig, and then Jake goes to the Hounds, then it's done. It's 3 supports, but just like kept adding up.
Yeah, it was just the first domino I feel like that fell that really led to it. But it'll be interesting. Like, a lot of these teams are going to be a lot different to play against for us, and then even for all you guys that are fans to watch as well. Because, like you said, a roaming role definitely affects the map a lot.
I think it's fun
how a team plays.
I think it's fun to see, like, there's only 3 teams that didn't change at all. Both of our teams are one of them. You guys obviously won the most recent tournament. I'd say we've had a pretty, like, rough year. Though, at both the tournaments, we made the finals of the first tournament, like, I think we were in the tournaments. We've been second, third, and fourth in the tournament. So I'm not like
I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not panicking. So yeah, and then the Ravens. I know the Ravens and us feel pretty similarly. Like we just feel like we haven't played a ton of Smite. So I'm just so excited to start scrimming again. Like for me, like I've had new teammates for like 4 months. Like I played with new teammates for like 4 months of scrim. So yeah, I'm really excited to play again. I think even for the teams that haven't changed, I think like obviously you guys have just like, you know, you, Paul, Cyclone have been together for a while. Sino, obviously you guys have played with for a bit too. Like you guys have been very successful. The Ravens had a really good first split, seeing them in their second phase. And then I'm excited to see if we can stop inting our regular season. So yeah, I'm just excited for the SPL. I think at the very least, the roster changes are interesting. I'm excited to see how they play out for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back and start scrimming too. I feel like
I want to scrim so bad, man.
We had a really good showing at the tournament, and it felt like at that tournament we finally started like getting on the same page a little bit, which is what really felt that's
it's such a good feeling.
That's always a good feeling, and so I'm excited to get back because I feel like we're going in the right direction now, where I feel like we were kind of scattered all over the place and we were trying to figure things out because a team like ours has a lot of people with a lot of opinions, which is always a good thing. But it's like hard to like put the puzzle together.
But it's good too, because when you have that and you have people that care and you have people that want to win, like you said, as long as you battle through it, normally you come out the better side of it. At the very least, like a better player, better team, whatever it is, like it's always good in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really hard to do it in the moment, but when you get through it and you look at it, you're like, I'm glad we did this because it just made like the team better. And like going forward, we've gone through this together. We could do it again, basically, and it feels really good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's it for the recent stuff. Like I said, we've been going for a bit. Do you have anything on your mind maybe about other roster changes or other things? Not necessarily like recent stuff, but just things that remind you of, or other things you've gone through in your career that maybe you've been thinking of because of it.
Me and Mike were like, yeah, we'll go through these really quick.
I know. I checked my phone. I'm like, that's not quick.
But yeah, no, we plan on that part to be a little short, but I feel like we got a lot of good stuff out of it. I mean, I enjoyed talking about that, but for other roster changes in the past, like I will say I've been part of...
Can we talk about the grass is greener thing? Is that what you're going to say? Yeah. It just popped into my mind. I mean,
Yeah, like I've been a part of like plenty of teams, and I feel like the biggest like grass is greener moment that I had was probably going from season 6 to season 7. Because I played with Scream, and
the season 6 one was you, Scream, Sot, Sino, and
no, it was Scream. It was Scream.
Not Sino. I meant Sot. I said Sot, or I said Sino and said
Scream, Sot, Ven, Cyclone, and myself. Yeah, and we didn't have the best showing at Worlds. Like we lost to were they SK that year, I think. Yeah, and we could have honestly like we won the first game really fast. And it was a best of 3. Who knows what could happen? We could have won another game like that. That's why I dislike the invade meta. I guess I'm biased because I lost in it as well at Worlds. But like that's where it's in like
best of 3. It's really tough.
Like we won the first game.
We also played best of 5s in the regular season that whole year. And then you played best of 3s in a tournament, so it definitely leaves a bad taste.
I don't mind that as much. It was just like for me, the invade meta is what I didn't like. Is like we won game 1 because we had such a good strategy. They weren't ready for it, and we kind of just won off the invade. Game 2 and game 3. Game 3
was like an awful start, right?
Game 3, I made a huge mistake. If I bought Horrific, we would have won the game on the spot. I feel like, but like that's always he said she said moment. Yeah. I went Thunder. So basically. Game 2, they matched us really well. Like Paul, I think he played Uller. I think he played Paul was against us.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So Ven played Kukulkan and I played Jing 10. I think in game 2, if I'm remembering. I might be misremembering. I think I played XT. He played Kukulkan, and like. Kukulkan and Jing 10 are not very good at level 1, let's be honest. No. Like, they're not good characters. And then Paul, like the meta back then, people weren't playing, like, Uller mid and stuff like that. I think Paul locked in Uller or some Hunter. I think it was Uller, because I think that's when he was on his Uller kick. And like if you put a pick like that in against our strategy where we're invading you with our entire team and you have a god that can do that much damage and is so that good early game, like it kind of ruins like our strategy a little bit. So they kind of crushed us in game 2 for that reason. So my thought process is going into game 3 is they're going to match us again and I'm just going to buy Sunder and we're going to one-shot somebody, because I was buying Horrific in every other game going up into that tournament as well.
That's what you were most practiced with too. If I'm not misremembering,
Yeah, because I was going Blink during the regular season most of the games, and then I remember I swapped to Horrific, and Ven and Scream were like, why are you not going Blink anymore? I remember we had this talk. Why are you not going Blink anymore? It was working so well. That's when Blink got nerfed that year, number 1. Yep. And I hated the nerf. And
that was the over the wall one, right?
Yeah. That was that nerf. And then number 2, I stopped going Blink because I felt like Blink wasn't that great in the invade. Like
the way you guys were playing, you were walking up to their buff in 3v3 and like blinking isn't a surprise factor anymore. Like you're just gonna be there.
And that's the other thing too. Like even if I were to go to their speed or whatever, or find their jungler, like if I Horrific them in my jungle, they're gonna die. So like game 3, I was playing Horus with Sunder. They didn't match us, so we walked up early. We didn't see them, so they were like, okay, they're not here. So then we scout. We somehow saw where they were at, I think, and I saw them at our speed buff.
Yeah, was it Sam who was at your speed buff? Sam's the one who invaded, right?
Yeah. So we found him, and I was there. Sot fearlesses him into the wall. I think he was tier, I believe. I want to say he was tier. He fearlessed him into the wall, and I'm there as Horus. I'm walking in Horrific range. If I have Horrific there, he dies, and the game is over, by the way. Like, in that type of meta.
Screwed if that happens,
like... And what happens is I have Sunder. I can't Horrific him now, and he runs. I think he was Pele.
He ran like all the way to your Phoenix.
He was Pele 3, and then I made a really bad call in that game. Well, I didn't make the call, but I made a bad call by not calling anything. Scream basically said, I'll finish him. But realistically, in that meta, like you want your junglers uptime farming camps as high as possible. Yep. It doesn't matter if the jungler is stopping the other jungler. It's more important if your own jungler in that meta was getting
farmed. It's the jungler compared to the laners that mattered. Like
so Scream chased him and he ended up not being able to kill him because he just got out as Pele because he was just fast with Pele 3. If I chased him around instead of Scream and Scream was farming that entire time, that game also probably would have went better as well. So that was a huge mistake that I could have made. So even with the Horrific me misbuying it, I think we could have still like competed in that game if I did that play instead, but I messed up, so it was bad on me.
And then you're saying that just the way that set goes, it kind of led you into season 7, or
yeah. So that set, I guess I just prefaced it as like that set. We lost in the first round. They ended up winning too, which like as a team, I guess I should have took that into account. Like they were the best team at the tournament, by far, and I felt. We were feeling really good going to that. That's the best I think I've ever felt going into Worlds recently, I would say, is that team, because we had so many good picks.
I think you guys were the favorites from the public, I'd say, as well.
Also, like, they couldn't play ESET, and, like, we banned it because Cyclone was just dominating everybody on ESET, and nobody else could play it. And if we should have, we should have experimented more and seen if they played it in the first game. Yeah, we did stupid stuff by banning it, from ourselves.
That's what we tried to do, and then we had a bad start game 1, just like you're saying, and then we didn't go back to it once, and it's so troll.
And we're talking about World Season 6 as well, not Season 7. Yeah. And going into Season 7 from World Season 6, I was like, I heard that Adapting was going to be a free agent, basically.
Yep.
And then I also heard Benji was going to be a free agent. And Benji was trying to join our team already back when we were losing Baskin, but he couldn't get a contract buyout from E United.
Yep.
So I already wanted to play with
no disrespect to Sot, but you can't deny the Benji pickup. Yeah.
No disrespect to Sot. And also, I love playing with Sot too. That's like another thing. Like if we stuck with Sot as well, like Sot's
a really good player.
So good.
Yeah,
like
such a good player.
But like going from Scream as a player to someone like Adapting, like I just thought
such a huge shift.
I just thought like the way that Adapting played would have fit my style better.
It was Ven to big men too,
and
right?
Ven to big
it was
men
everyone
as well.
but you and Cyclone change.
Yeah, so we kind of made like a huge roster change, and everybody labeled us as like a super team.
Super team.
Yeah,
you love it.
Which is fine. Like it's honestly like the best compliment you can get, I feel like, as a player. But at the same time, I think it's really stupid personally.
It's basically people saying that they think your roster's talented, but it doesn't actually like mean anything.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it's like a very nice compliment, like in an unironic way, I guess. But like, I personally hate it. But anyways, we go in that season, and like the way that team played, like the Splice team in season 6, I feel like if we stayed together and ran it back that year, we probably would have been at least a lot more consistent than the Radiance team that we had that entire year. But to argue, we did make 2 of the finals, and we almost made the Worlds finals that year as well.
Do you think that the post-Worlds roster changes impacted your like decision making going into that? Because that was for you and Cyclone in like a 15-month period, whatever it is, because we went from the Worlds were November to November, right? Season 5, season 6, both those Worlds were in November.
Yeah.
So by the time we get to like Christmas of season 6, like going into season 7, the roster changes were already done.
Yep. So
within 12 months, you guys went from winning season 5 Worlds, and it was you, Cyclone, and then the other 3 were Maswell, Sino, and Divios.
Yeah.
Then those other 3 were Ven, Scream, and Baskin. Then it was Ven, Scream, and Sot, and then it was Big Man, Adapting, and Benji. So you guys had like 10 different teammates in the span of 12 months, or whatever that math is.
And it's crazy, like you listing off those teammates, like all those players are
great players.
So good.
All of them so good.
So I've been so lucky to play with so many good players. Like all those players are insanely good. Like you can argue that they've been the best player in their role at any given time.
Point, yeah, for sure.
For every single one of those players, for all 9 of them, 100%. So I was very lucky, like in that span of time, to play with those players. But at the same time, you like valuing playing with someone for a while is definitely like it is good. At the same time, it could be maybe bad.
I think it can be bad too.
It could be good and bad. But I feel like that team, we had so much potential that we never got to completely show, which I guess I don't regret making that change, because I feel like that season 7 Radiance year was the best year for me as an individual player. Like I learned.
Oh, you're saying with how much you learned.
Yeah, I learned so much by myself that year, which I feel like it was important for like season 8, season 9, and season 10.
Yeah.
Like if I didn't have that year to learn by myself like that, I would not be the player that I am today.
You've said before, like I think you've said it on this podcast as well, like that was the year that you probably didn't enjoy the most, right? Just because in the moment it is hard, and you do have to battle through it, and there's a lot of like negative feelings and second guessing and confidence and all that stuff that goes into it. Yeah. So I think, like you said, like I mean, and we said at the start of it, like that grass always being greener, like it can lead you, like long term maybe it's good, but in the short term it can definitely lead you to some points where like it puts you in a spot where you struggle a lot. I think for me, like, I mean, I've had it so much. I think I've touched on like all these changes before, but like season 4 going into season 5, same spot you're in with like your team on Splice. Like we won Worlds. We had a rough start to season 5. We battled through it. We ended up being the like first seed in NA, like back-to-back splits. Actually, I think we were second spring and then first in summer. And then we just didn't like how we were performing at those tournaments against the European teams. We had lost to Rival. We beat Rival at Worlds, then lost to him in the second, third place match or whatever, like losers finals or whatever, because it was double elim tournament. Lost to him at losers finals, both of the tournaments back to back. Summer of season 5 was actually, I thought that was the best we were ever playing on that United team with then. We were just crushing, and I was super confident. Tournament just didn't work out. We were having other issues, and it just felt like there was time for a change, and we did really well with Baskin. We were first in NA again. But kind of as you said, like we didn't get that point where we had to battle through adversity until it was kind of too late. Like the point we hit that was we lost 1 set to you guys, and then we didn't play for like a month and a half, and then played Worlds, which I don't really care about the downtime a ton. It's just more like when you're in that stage when you're trying to bounce back through adversity and you don't have a game sample. lost a quarter at Worlds, and then it's like blown up because Baskin was going to go to school. Scream had 3 months to finish school or whatever it was, and it's just tough. And then same thing, like for me, like I've looked back at it a lot, like the roster changes that we made on Rival and then Ghost, like I've talked about before, like I really wanted to play with Twig going into that Rival year. Like that's literally how that team started. Was it started by me talking to Twig. I just really wanted to play with Twig. I liked the way he thought about the game, and I just thought he was a good player. And we kind of like built the roster around that, and we did really well all year. Lost in Worlds Finals, always like coulda, woulda, shoulda in that set. Like we were like stomping game 3, failed like 3 sieges in a row. Had a really bad fight that threw the game at the end, lost the game, lost the very next game, sets over. Like, who knows what would have happened? Like, we were not even one game. We were 1 siege away from potentially winning Worlds. We would have been up 2-1. Confidence would have been super high, like, because we would have, snowballed and won 2 games in a row. At that point, we lost game 1, won game 2 convincingly, would have won game 3 convincingly. Like, so much could change. We go from having such a good year, doing really well, improving a lot. Like we had a lot of adversity. We lost to Armada, an SCC team. We were the first seed in the spring split. Lost first round to an SCC team, 2-0'd, not even close. Like one of the quote unquote like most embarrassing losses ever. Gave us a lot of adversity. Like we fought through it. Ended up going to Worlds. Had like a pretty good Worlds. Didn't win. SK played great. And then like instantly it like it leaves such a bad taste in your mouth, and you instantly are second guessing stuff, and you make roster changes. I've thought about it a lot. Like Sam played great that Ghost year. Sam was really good for us, and I thought Twig was really good mid too. But like the actual decision to kick Twig out of jungle is like kind of weird. Like if you look back on it objectively, like Twig's been one of the most successful junglers ever. He was like at the start of that team, like I said, he was like the core of it.
Yep. If it was anybody else probably switching from jungle,
we wouldn't have even. Yeah, that's the thing, is we didn't go into the roster changes and we were like, oh, should we change Twig? It was only because Sam messaged us. Sam messaged me and was like, do you think like if I left, SK or whatever, do you think you guys would be interested in playing with me? And then it starts to get you to think. And like at the moment, I felt so bad about like, you feel so sad that you like lost, and you think about like all these things of like, oh, I could have done this, could have done that. Like if one thing changed, that like, yeah, it just, I think in the moment it's just a lot easier to like overthink it, and then same thing, we were talking about like our Ghost year, like we won everything until the finals. We went down 2-0, we brought it back to game 5. We were 1 fight away from winning. We were ahead most of that game, lost 1 fight, lost the game off it in the late game, literally 1 fight. And it's not even 1 game, it is like even the 2 games we lost, we were stomping both the games. Paul stole like 4 Fire Giants in 2 games, and they won the games off him. Like we're literally 1 fight or 1 Fire Giant secure away from like a perfect season, quote unquote. Like just sweeping it, winning everything. And then it like, the roster changes after that. Like we end up kicking Twig completely, and then we like didn't pick up, like Paul had asked to join. We didn't pick up Paul. We went with Hurry. I think Hurry played really well with us in the spring, and then we just had more like adversity, I guess, in the summer, and it just felt like I just think it was that was a situation where I think sticking together, we just stuck together too long, and I think it was nobody's fault personally. I just think like it was just a lot to overcome. Like I just think when you're that successful and pressure is that high, like it is literally like win Worlds or bust, and obviously, like I said, no team's perfect, and when we were in our spot, it's just kind of like there's so much pressure on yourself, not even from the other people, it's from us. Like if you make 2 finals I mean, I'm sure you know that as well, like you guys made changes this year, but like for you and Paul, it's back-to-back Worlds that you make the finals and you end up losing in both of those. Like you guys both are really competitive, you both really want to win. Like it's the same thing, like when you're that type of competitor and you want to win, like you're all in for Worlds. Like it's a lot of like stress you put on yourself mentally, like to perform your best. And I think I think sometimes change is good. I think it's been good for you guys this year, because I think, like you said, like it has put you in a spot where you have a lot of people who are opinionated, but it puts you in a spot where like you want to work together and everything. And I just think working through that is really important. You're going to get it no matter what you have. And if you constantly like, there's just a balance you have to hit. Like you can't stay together too long, but you also can't change instantly, like every time. So
yeah, for sure. But every change you make, as long as you personally, like any player that's playing the SPL, like if you want to play, definitely keep trying to play, because the more experience you get, the more battles you endure, the more things you learn, the better the player you become. So it's just, if you hang in, all you got to do is hang in there. That's
easier said than done sometimes.
And honestly, feels impossible at times to do that, because it's like, it's not even that it's hard to do what we do. It just doesn't feel great sometimes, and it's like, I could just go do something else. Like, why commit all my time to this when I could just do something completely different?
And I will say, if there is one thing that I think is really hard about our job, I do think it's like the mental, like you said, like you're constantly like a part of it. You're constantly thinking about it. There's a lot of like mental battles you have to go through in your own head, and a lot of stress to perform your best. And I think like learning that is really important as well, and trying to get through that. I think one last thing, because we've been going forever. Thank you everybody who's listened the whole time for sure. One last thing, we don't have to explain a ton. I just thought of it. Quick gut check. Is Zap on a team by the end of the year?
I want to say yeah,
I think yes too.
I want to say yes really bad, because I do think he's really good. And I think that, like, knowing Zap, I feel like I don't know him super well, but I feel like I know him pretty good. I feel like he's not done. Like, he wants to still play.
Way. I think Zap, it's hard, because when you've been around that long, and maybe like we've had it at moments too, you definitely have periods where like you're not feeling the best, like you're not as motivated, or you're not having as much fun with it. Mm-hmm. And that'll exist with any job or anything you do in life. Could be a hobby. Like, you're gonna have times where you're loving it, and then you're gonna have times where you're like, I'm kind of over it for the time being. But yeah, like, I don't think Zap's done either.
Yeah, I think he's still good. I mean, he's still good at the game. He streams so much. He plays a lot. I don't know how he does it, honestly. I can't believe he streams. Like, I don't think...
Got to put his brain in a museum.
There isn't any other player in Smite's history. Like, this is why he's so good too. Like, there isn't any other player that's played from season 0 all the way up until now.
Dude, he might have the most games played ever. Total. He actually might.
Maybe, but from season 0 all the way to now, on a consistent streaming schedule.
Oh yeah.
He's been playing basically every patch, every meta. Majority of it is a hunter player. Some of it is jungle, I guess, in like the way pass. But like, he's been around forever, and he streams as much as he does, and he's won as much as he has in the later stages of his career with different players. Yeah. Is so insane to think about that he just doesn't get enough credit for. I feel like that's the biggest thing. Like, who else has won worlds with a different group besides
Hardcore?
Yeah, besides Yarkor. Yeah, literally Yarkor and Zap.
Yep, that's it.
And I don't know, Zap's won it with, so he won it with the 5 players originally, then Fred, and then another 4, with 4 players, then Fred, and then another 4 players. So he's won worlds with 9 different players, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is insane.
Not only that,
that's more than 2 teams worth of players. Yeah. Even though it's just a little bit.
And if you think about the team or the players that he's played with as well, like, both of us have played with him and then won. Like what you said earlier, like, I definitely learned a lot from Zap. Like, if he wants to play, it's hard. Like, he's a very Zap's a Zap. You know, like, he's definitely not the best scrimmer. But there's no doubt about how smart and how good he is, and how competitive he's been his whole career. He's a good player. But yeah, that's all I have. You have anything else?
No, that's good. I'm happy with this episode. I will say one thing not related to Smite, but more related to the podcast, is that I have to still get Mike the Moswell episode. I don't think I got it to. Did I get that to you or not yet? I don't remember.
I don't know. I got copyright or not copyright. I got a strike on YouTube, so you might have it, but I might not have gotten it up yet. One of my old Scrim VODs it's like a private video, got striked, so I can't post for like a week.
That's so random. It's unlisted as well, or did you list it into?
It's unlisted. They're all unlisted. They're all private Scrim VODs, and I got strike for it. So anyway,
that is so random.
I had to review that with them or whatever. So.
But yeah, I gotta get Mike that video. I think I haven't even got. I was traveling this week. I just got back to Georgia a couple days ago, so that episode will be up soon. I think it will be also on Spotify soon as well. I have to double check with, I think Jordan's the one who posts those. Big shout outs to Jordan and basically for helping us do the studio, and Jameson as well. Everybody behind the scenes that's helped us with the podcast here, really appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much.
Yep.
But yeah, and then I'll give Mike his normal plug to YouTube and Spotify.
Yeah, excited to be back in person for sure. Excited to be back playing the SPL. I think schedule-wise, we might keep it here and do it late Sundays, but we'll keep you guys updated as always on Twitter or whatever you follow us on. But yeah, we'll be back next week on Aurora's Twitch right here. You can find it at my YouTube at PBM Smite, and then inside the SPL on Spotify. Thanks everybody for watching. SPL starting back soon. Roll Stars next week. Definitely check that out.
Next week, I think we should try to have some people like on Sunday that are in the finals. Maybe that'd be fun. We could just ask whoever makes the finals if they want to hang around.
For sure. I mean, it'd be maybe not like to us for sure.
Yeah, true. Or maybe we'll be looking at each other. Just 4 supports in here. But yeah, no, we should definitely have whoever does well in Roll Stars on after. If we can do that, that'd be a lot of fun, I feel like. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah, see you later. Bye.
One if I'm trolling from